Urban Pokémon. The strongest trainer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. Why are you here? You are just fooling around. After learning what happened, Zhao Xianyang's face became even more gloomy. He thought it was a big deal, but it turned out to be such a small matter that he almost overturned someone's restaurant. Do you know what the consequences of doing this are? Do you have a brain? Similarly, the other members of the Zhang family, Zhang Haitian and Sun Nan, also looked like they were about to explode. If this was their territory, seeing the little ghost fighting, just because of such a small matter, no one would be able to stand it. Zhu Zhi next to him also frowned, but he didn't take it to heart. Zhao Xianyang didn't expect that your Zhao family is really getting more and more powerful. Sun Kun hadn't spoken yet. At this time, Sun Nan, the family of the Zin family, was also cold and looked at Zhao Xianyang. Old Zhao, shouldn't you also explain what your son means by this matter? Do you want to go to war with our Zhang family? Zhang Haitian also said viciously. You know, although there are some small conflicts between the major families on weekdays, everyone will naturally not bring them to the table. But does Zhao Hongru's attitude now also represent the attitude of the Zhao family? Zhao Xianyang ignored him, but walked quickly towards Zhao Hongru. Why do you get involved in this kind of thing? Zhu Zhi also looked at Zhu Xiandao and complained in a low voice. You know, he heard it clearly just now. This matter was just a grudge between the Sun family and the Zhao family at the beginning. However, it can be said that Zhu Xiandao is also responsible for the current situation. I just want to help and repay the favor. Zhu Xiandao said a little embarrassedly. He didn't expect that things would get so bad because of himself. Is he wrong? Zhao Xianyang ignored other people, but came to his son Zhao Hongru and said coldly. That look was like looking at a stranger. At this time, Zhao Fengru's face was even paler. At that moment, the majesty of his father was like a mountain, pressing him so hard that he couldn't breathe. Pa. Zhao Xianyang didn't even think about it and slapped him with his hand. I'm really sorry, everyone. It's all my fault. I didn't teach my son well and made everyone laugh at me. Zhao Xianyang said helplessly. Although he was angry, Zhao Xianyang knew that he really had no other choice except to admit his mistakes to everyone. What made him most angry was that he hadn't done anything wrong at all, and he was actually tricked by his son. Go back to your room quickly. Stay in your room without my order. If you dare to come out, I'll break your legs. After saying that, Zhao Xianyang said to Zhang Hongru behind him in a rage. Of course, he was doing this for others to see, including the slap just now. If he didn't do something, these people would never calm down. Zhao Hongru also turned around and left. After all, he felt that he had lost face from beginning to end. As for the people from other families, they naturally wouldn't say much. After all, this matter had nothing to do with them. And Zukun's face changed slightly. Although he was very angry, he really couldn't get angry about this matter. After all, people's attitudes were given. There is no way to pursue this kind of thing, otherwise it would offend people to death. Finally, several people left again. After all, they had more important things to discuss. Thank you very much for this matter. Zhu Xiandao also took the initiative to come to Wang Lei's side and took the initiative to thank him. Nothing, these are just some small things. Wang Lei also said very generously and finally blinked at Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused, and then he suddenly turned around and then he saw Sun Haiying, who appeared behind him at some point. Thank you for what happened just now. Sun Haiying also said with a look of relief. After all, if a fight really broke out, it would be difficult for him to deal with it. With Zhu Xiandao, he could be very relaxed. Why are we too polite? You helped me before, and we are all friends. Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly. By the way, I don't know where Sun Haitao is. Zhu Xiandao looked around and found that he didn't see Sun Haitao at all. It's because his strength has been greatly hit, but he still asked me to apologize to you before he left. Sun Haiying said this with a trace of worry in his eyes. After all, he is his younger brother. Although his younger brother is useless, he can't help him, even if he wants to, so that's how it is. Zhu Xiandao nodded. Naturally, he also knew how uncomfortable it was to be suppressed by others, when his strength was not as good as others. It seems that this incident really hit Sun Haitao hard, and he really needs to communicate with Sun Haitao in the future. Finally, Zhu King also came over, and scolded Zhu Xiandao. He was really powerless to complain about Zhu Xiandao's behavior, and Zhu Xiandao was also embarrassed next to him, and could only let Zhu King vent. After leaving Wang Lei and Sun Haiying, Zhu Xiandao and Zhu King returned to the other courtyard. Zhu Xiandao had just returned to the room. After feeding his elves, he began to make the special biscuits he promised to the squirrel before. When the squirrel saw this, he was even more excited, and even drooled at the corner of his mouth. Of course, the reason why Zhu Xiandao made such special cookies was because the system gave them to him before. However, this special cookie is not very useful, but it tastes really good. Dang dang dang. Just when Zhu Xiandao was making it, someone suddenly knocked on the door and woke him up. Zhu Xiandao stopped what he was doing and opened the door. As soon as the door of the room was opened, Zhu Xiandao suddenly found that there was a beautiful girl standing in front of him. Zhu Feng, why are you here? Zhu Xiandao's eyes widened. Why, don't you want to see me? Zhu Feng said with a smile, and then walked towards Zhu Xiandao's room in a swagger. Zhu Xiandao also looked embarrassed, and finally closed the door. Are you making cookies? When he came to the room, Zhu Feng saw the props that Zhu Xiandao put on the table at a glance, and he could see at a glance that Zhu Xiandao was going to make cookies. Yes, my pet likes the cookies I made by myself, so I plan to make some for him. Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly. By the way, this is the squirrel I raised. Zhu Xiandao pointed to the squirrel on the bed and explained to Zhu Feng. Chapter 102. Something unexpected happened. Finally, he said to the squirrel, this is Zhu Feng, who is my friend. Zhu Xiandao thought for a moment and said, after all, the two of them are not that kind of relationship yet. The squirrel just nodded lightly and then stared at the biscuits on the table that had not been made yet. Zhu Feng also smiled slightly. It seems that he likes to eat biscuits very much. Otherwise, how about I send him some? That's different. He just wants to eat what I made by myself. Of course, if you make it by yourself, maybe he will be willing to eat it. Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly. I guess it's not him who likes the biscuits I make, but you like it. Zhu Feng rolled his eyes at Zhu Xiandao. By the way, I still have some energy cubes in my bag. If you need them, just take them yourself. Zhu Xiandao continued to make his own biscuits while speaking. I came to you this time. I really want to come to you to get new energy blocks. Zhu Feng said with some surprise, not expecting that his purpose was instantly seen through by Zhu Xiandao. I don't know you yet. You don't come to see me for no reason. If you have nothing to do, how could you come to see me? Zhu Xiandao shook his head, as if he knew everything about you. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, Zhu Feng glared at Zhu Xiandao fiercely. Could it be that he couldn't come to chat with him if he had nothing to do? However, Zhu Feng was not polite at all and directly searched all the energy cubes of Zhu Xiandao's hometown. Looking at Zhu Feng's attitude, Zhu Xiandao also shook his head slightly. It seemed that Zhu Feng should not know that he had been sold by his father a long time ago. By the way, what are your plans after the party ends tomorrow? Zhu Feng continued to ask after finishing the looting. What other plans can I have? I will continue to travel and train as before. Anyway, I must participate in this year's national conference. Zhu Xiandao said, after thinking about it. After all, Zhu Xiandao wanted to become stronger because he had the system, because strength was the most important thing in this world. As long as his strength reached the top of the world, everything else he wanted would be at his fingertips. What about you? What are you going to do? Zhu Xiandao also asked back. I haven't thought it through yet, and my father said he wants to talk to me about something tonight. I don't know what he's going to do. Zhu Feng said helplessly. After all, in a big family, many things are beyond your control and you can only do what you are told. Zhu Xiandao's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Zhu Feng's father Zhu Kun was going to tell me about the engagement tonight? Zhu Xiandao could even think that with Zhu Feng's temper, if he knew about this matter and knew that I was hiding it from him, he would probably come over and cut him into pieces that night. Then the two of them were chatting and talked about Zhang Na and Zhu Xiandao. They also learned that after a period of travel, Zhang Na felt that she was not the material to be an adventurer. Zhang Na also went to the breeder to learn and planned to be a breeder. Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly. Just based on the few elves that Zhang Na had subdued, their combat effectiveness was terribly low. Such a person was not suitable to be an adventurer at all. However, it must be said that every elf who opened his belly was indeed at the level of the Appearance Association. After chatting for a while, Zhu Feng also left Zhu Xiandao's room. After Zhu Xiandao finished making cookies, he also planned to rest. At this time, Zhu Zhi also came to Zhu Xiandao's room. We plan to leave tomorrow. I wonder if you have any other plans? Zhu Zhi asked again. After all, although Zhu Xiandao is already a member of their Zhu family, in the past 15 years, Zhu Xiandao has also been accustomed to a free life alone, and Zhu Xiandao's training alone can also increase Zhu Xiandao's experience. Zhu Zhi did not intend to restrain Zhu Xiandao, and he did not have the right to restrain him. It's still the same as before. I plan to continue practicing everywhere. Zhu Xiandao said lightly. I thought you would continue to stay with the eldest lady of the Zhu family. Zhu Zhi also smiled slightly. Zhu Xiandao was even more embarrassed. It was obvious that Zukan had definitely communicated with Zhu Zhi, and the two of them should have reached an agreement. In other words, no matter what decision he made from the beginning to the end, it seemed that he could not change it. He was completely sold out by Zhu Zhi. Well, I came to you this time mainly to remind you that, if you really want to march around, don't go to Shanming Island. Seeing Zhu Xiandao's eyes, Zhu Zhi also hurriedly changed the subject. You can't go to Shanming Island. Why? Zhu Xiandao was full of doubts. Although Zhu Zhi would not harm him, Zhu Xiandao still wanted to find out what happened there. Since Zhu Zhi was able to speak, Zhu Xiandao was sure that something big must have happened there. Because it's not very peaceful there recently, especially those little devils don't know what's going on recently. They always make some small moves in secret. We have all received news that they often appear in Shanming Island recently. If you go there, you may suffer an unexpected disaster. Zhu Zhi also said seriously and cautiously. After all, if you go to the territory of other families, then no matter what, they will each keep a little face. At least no one will die. But if you meet that kind of little devil, they don't care which family you are from, they will kill you. Just now, he was even more embarrassed. If he guessed correctly, he seemed to have been involved. Although the other party should not have discovered that this matter had anything to do with him, Zhu Xiandao was very curious about what the little devils were doing. What? Could it be that you also know this news? Zhu Zhi looked at Zhu Xiandao's attitude and said with a puzzled look. Well, 2 months ago, I just killed a group of devils and handed them over to the police. Zhu Xiandao also briefly talked about the previous things. After hearing this, Zhu Zhi's mouth twitched constantly. It was obvious that the little devils would definitely make a big move, but Zhu Xiandao had already participated in it. What's more terrifying is that Zhu Xiandao should have just become independent not long ago, but he was so bold. For a moment, Zhu Zhi looked at Zhu Xiandao's eyes and changed completely. He was brave, resourceful, and talented. This boy had unlimited future. Tell me the details of the matter. Zhu Zhi said very curiously. Maybe he could learn more about the inside story through this matter. Chapter 103. It turns out that she was targeting me. The story is roughly like this. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also briefly talked about what happened before. The main thing was that he went there for training and accidentally saw the divine beast and the Japanese devils chasing the divine beast from a distance, including the two investigators Zhu Xiandao met later. Zhu Xiandao did not hide anything and blurted out everything. After all, the man in front of him was his father's younger brother, and Zhu Xiandao felt that there was no need to hide anything from him. Maybe this was also a face full of speechlessness. They also had news about this matter. They also asked about this case at that time. After all, as a top family, once they fight with the Japanese devils, they are people on the same front. Because the reason why the case they investigated before did not make progress was that it turned out that this matter was related to their zoo family. Okay, I know you did a very good job on this matter, but if you encounter this kind of thing next time, you can directly tell them your identity. Just say that you are from our zoo family, and then give them the clues. ZZHI said, after thinking about it. After all, there is no benefit in hiding this kind of thing. If they knew the purpose of the Japanese devils earlier, they could make more targeted efforts. By the way, I transferred 6 million to your account. You should spend it sparingly. 6 million is not a small amount. ZZHI, who was about to leave, spoke again and left completely. It turned out that Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly. He was indeed a rich man. He took out 6 million casually. If it were in the past, I'm afraid it would take me several years to earn it. After a night's rest, in front of the gate of the Xianshan Zoo family the next morning, Zukan was also entertaining the Zoo family's farewell. Wait a moment, this is something my daughter gave you. After a simple shiver with everyone, Zukan also took out something and handed it to Zhu Xiandao. After Zhu Xiandao took it, he looked at it in confusion and found that it was just an envelope which seemed to contain a small item. But Zhu Xiandao was even more embarrassed. Could it be that Zhu Feng was embarrassed to see him after learning the news last night? Zhu Xiandao also said goodbye to Zhu Zhi and his group at the airport. Don't forget what I told you. Be sure to pay attention to safety. Zhu Zhi also said with some worry. Although it is a good thing that Zhu Xiandao is brave, if something really happens and causes trouble that cannot be solved, it will be difficult to deal with. Don't worry, I still know what to do. Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly. After a simple greeting, Zhu Xiandao watched the plane leave and walked out of the airport. I'm going to start my new practice again. The first place I'm going to go is the new Jade Dojo. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, he also headed towards the new Jade Dojo. Then Zhu Xiandao also took out the envelope that Zukan gave him. There was a message from Zhu Feng and a necklace that Zhu Feng gave him. Zhu Xiandao simply took a look at the general meaning. In addition to the class, the most important meaning was that Zhu Feng had some things to deal with for the time being and could not travel with him. He had to be more careful. As for this necklace, Zhu Xiandao also looked at it carefully. This is a specially made necklace, and the most important thing is the bead in the middle of the necklace. Regarding this necklace, Zhu Feng also explained in the letter that he saw the evolution stone left in Zhu Xiandao's backpack, and this necklace was for him to carry the evolution stone. Finally, Zhu Xiandao put away the necklace and came to the Nova Gym. After Zhu Xiandao arrived at the competition venue, he also found that this was just a regular venue, and for some unknown reason, there was not a single spectator in the audience seats of this gym. That is the challenger Zhu Xiandao this time, right? I'm Wang Nuo, the gym trainer here. Finally, opposite Zhu Xiandao, there was a young woman who introduced herself to Zhu Xiandao. Hello. Zhu Xiandao also responded politely. Zhu Xiandao did not say too much nonsense. The two of them stood on the command platform. After the referee next to him announced the rules, Wang Nuo took the lead in taking out a Pokeball. The cold turtle is level 41. Looking at the Pokémon man summoned by the other party, the protagonist's mouth twitched slightly. I don't know why, since his debut, it seems that everyone has been targeting him. A level 41 Pokémon. This is not something that will be used in a normal challenge. What sin did I commit? Why do I feel that all the gyms are targeting me? Although Zhu Xiandao can easily win against elves of this level, he still feels a little unhappy when he thinks that his difficulty is higher than others. Before the game, can I ask who commissioned you to deliberately target me? Zhu Xiandao said speechlessly. I didn't expect that you could guess this. Wang Nuo on the opposite side said in surprise. And Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly. Is there any need to guess? Normally challenged elves are no more than level 30. You took out a level 41 elf. If this is not targeting this, what is it? Even if I'm stupid, I'm not stupid enough to that extent. However, Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused about who was targeting him. It doesn't hurt to tell you. Wang Enuo thought about it and said, "In fact, someone commissioned me to increase the difficulty for you yesterday, saying that it was a punishment for you, punishing you for not reporting it to her." Zhu Xiandao was even more amused and helpless after hearing this. When the other party said this, Zhu Xiandao immediately knew who the other party was talking about. "It seems that you already know who he is. I didn't expect you to be so smart." Wang Enuo also looked at Zhu Xiandao in confusion. "Do I need to think about it? Who else could it be besides that woman?" Zhu Xiandao kept complaining. He never expected that Zhu Feng, as his future wife, would actually cheat him behind his back. What Zhu Xiandao didn't know was that in the empty auditorium, a camera was completely capturing the scene in front of him, and even the sound was clearly recorded. On the other side, he saw the scene on the screen, and the sound coming from the screen. A girl was stamping her feet in anger in the room, wishing she could rush into the TV and beat the man up with a gun. "Let's get started quickly." Wang Enuo also smiled slightly, with an expression of watching the fun. Zhu Xiandao didn't know that he was being watched by the girl, but he knew it very well. Chapter 104 I'm disgusted. Come out, Min Xiao. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, a charming Min Xiao appeared on the playing field in an instant, and even Wang Enuo was distracted for a moment. Seeing the charming Min Xiao on the screen, even Zhu Feng was envious. Zhu Feng knew when Zhu Xiandao got the stupid fish before, but she didn't expect Zhu Xiandao to be able to evolve the stupid fish into Min Xiao in such a short time. "It seems that Zhu Xiandao has hidden a lot of things from me. I must interrogate him next time I see him. Pray for rain." Zhu Xiandao said bluntly. He didn't care whether the other party was shocked or not. If the environment can be changed, it can also increase the combat power of Min Xiao. Then I saw Min Xiao howling to the sky, and then dark clouds appeared in the sky one after another. Then the scene suddenly became a little gloomy, and the rain was dripping. And Wang Enuo also came back to his senses. Smoke. As Wang Enuo finished speaking, Linus opened his mouth, and a thick smoke instantly appeared on the battlefield. Liquid circle. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, Minus flicked his tail, and the rain on the ground instantly rose into the air, forming a protective shield composed entirely of water. The thick smoke also slowly circled around Minus, instantly submerging Minus. When the thick smoke touched the rain, it even made a sizzling sound, as if it wanted to break the protective shield composed of water. Surfing. As Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, waves suddenly rose under Linus' feet, hitting the cold turtle on the opposite side. Guard. As Wang Enuo finished speaking, a white halo suddenly lit up on the cold turtle's body, and the waves continued to hit the protective shield. "I didn't expect to meet an elf who can protect." Zhu Xiandao also frowned slightly, and he finally understood the feelings of others. Although defense is not a particularly powerful skill, some small skills will not play any role in front of him. Instant amnesia. Zhu Xiandao was speechless. As a turtle, his defense was already strong enough, and now the network is still desperately adding defense. Could it be that all the skills of this cold turtle are defensive? However, no matter what skills the opponent has, Zhu Xiandao also said that, "Since you don't attack, then I will exhaust you to death." After all, the best defense is offense. I don't believe you can defend all of them. Use poison. Zhu Xiandao also seized the opportunity. At the moment when the protective light on the cold turtle disappeared, and the instant amnesia was used, Min Xiao opened his mouth and a mouthful of black venom instantly sprayed out. The venom was directly spit on the cold turtle, and Wang Enuo's mouth twitched. You know, in the past, he used absolute methods to disgust the opponent, but he didn't expect that Zhu Xiandao's grasp of the timing was so good. Then Wang Enuo felt even more terrified, because the damage of his Cinderella skill was not high, and Milotic could not only protect but also regenerate. It can be said that the two Pokémon fought for a long time, but there was no actual damage between them. And because Milotic had the ability to regenerate, his Cinderella was consumed to death. Meansella wins. Please ask the gym trainer to change Pokémon. As the referee finished speaking, Wang Enuo's mouth twitched slightly. The network also took back his Pokémon with a helpless look. He finally experienced what it meant to be invincible in defense today. Usually, he used this routine to disgust others, but he didn't expect to be disgusted by Zhu Xiandao in the same way today. Then Wang Enyuo's expression was tangled, not knowing how to choose. After waiting for a while, he gritted his teeth and sent out the second Pokémon, and then a snail with a red body full of magma appeared on the battlefield. Flame Snail level 43. As the flame snail just appeared, Wang Enyuo immediately gave an order. Zhu Xiandao was even more confused. You know, the gym he came to is a fire gym, but why did he encounter all fire defensive Pokémon? Zhu Xiandao had never seen such a strange combination before. You know, the fire attribute is an attack attribute, but someone used the fire attribute for defense. At this time, Zhu Xiandao couldn't help but complain crazily. Then Zhu Xiandao's expression became serious. Since the opponent was a defensive flow, today Zhu Xiandao planned to let the opponent see how disgusting the consumption flow was. The subsequent plot was even more similar to the previous one. Zhu Xiandao didn't expect that he could cause much damage to the opponent with one move. He just needed to ensure that his Pokémon was not injured and eat away the opponent bit by bit. Not long after, the flame snail was also consumed and taken away. Please ask the gym trainer to change the Pokémon again. At this time, even the financial judge next to him was happy. You know, it was a torment to watch Wang Enyuo use this defensive style of play on weekdays. It was the first time in a long time that he saw Wang Enyuo being defeated by others, and he suddenly became excited. Shameless, a shameless villain. Even Zhu Feng in front of the screen looked at Zhu Xiandao viciously. At this time, the network was also a little aggrieved. Originally, it wanted to teach Zhu Xiandao a lesson, but it didn't expect Zhu Xiandao to defeat two of them with one elf, and in such a disgusting way. Wang Enyuo stared at Zhu Xiandao even more viciously. Don't look at me like that. I have no choice. I can't think of any other way to win except this way. Seeing Wang Enyuo's eyes, Zhu Xiandao also spoke awkwardly. In any case, Wang Enyuo was able to contact Zhu Feng, which means that the two are also friends. Zhu Xiandao suddenly felt that he had gone too far. The most important thing is that the other party is still a girl, and he should really show mercy. Go, Flame Baboon. The next moment, a baboon with flames all over his body appeared on the field. Flame Baboon level 45. Finally, it was not a defensive elf. Zhu Xiandao breathed a sigh of relief, but the next moment his eyes suddenly condensed. Fire Baboon. The characteristics of the Fire Baboon. When Zhu Xiandao thought of the characteristics of the Fire Baboon, he suddenly got a headache. Chapter 105 1 vs 3. Flame Baboon, Encourage, then Fire Charge. Wang Enyuo was the first to give orders as soon as the Flame Baboon appeared, with anger flashing in his eyes. Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched. What kind of temper is this? Mean Shao Guard. However, Zhu Xiandao finally saw the attack power that the fire system should have. Encouragement plus Fire Charge, plus if the Rocket Baboon also has the characteristic of forcing, no matter which Pokémon can't take this move. And it seems that Wang Nu is really angry at this time, and he plans to get rid of Manus, no matter what method he uses. He is completely angry. Then he saw Flame Fifi raising his fists and knocking on his chest continuously, and his state became more and more excited, and then the flames on his body also rose. The next moment, like a big fireball, he rushed directly towards Manus. Bang! The next moment a deafening sound rang out in the competition field. The Flame Baboon crashed directly into the passport of Manus, although Venus was not hurt. But under this terrifying force, it was still knocked back a long distance, and the Guardian Light was directly shattered. Flame Charge. Then I saw Flame Fifi raised his fists again, and the whole person caused a blazing flame again. Charming. Looking at the continuous attack of the Flame Baboon, Zhu Xiandao was even more determined to take a gamble. First, Minus began to twist his body, exerting his charm to the extreme. Then I saw Flame Fifi's movement suddenly stop, and his eyes quickly turned pink, and then he showed a perverted expression. Seeing this scene, Zhu Xiandao was also relieved. He didn't expect that his bet was successful. On the other hand, Wang Enyuo was extremely depressed. He originally wanted to attack, but he never expected that his elf would be tempted before he started the attack. Although his flame baboon's attack power was extremely powerful, its defense was also pitifully fragile. In the advanced competition, he helplessly watched Menace create a large wave, which directly submerged his flame. At this time, the flame baboon was standing there like a fool, and was directly hit by the wave. When the wave passed, he saw the flame flying, and it had fallen to the ground and was unconscious. And Wang Enuo was even more depressed. The game is over. The winner is Zhu Xiandao. After the referee finished speaking, he looked at Zhu Xiandao with some surprise. I didn't expect Zhu Xiandao to win so easily, and he easily defeated Wang Enuo's 3 elves with just 1 elf. It also made me feel very comfortable at this time. After Wang Enuo said that, he walked to Zhu Xiandao with an unhappy face, and took out a gym badge, and handed it to Zhu Xiandao. You are awesome. Wang Enuo's face was full of resentment. Zhu Xiandao was also a little embarrassed. He took the gym badge and didn't know what to say, thinking that he seemed to have done something too much just now. Complete the main task and get a skill draw. Draw 3 times. The system prompt sounded in Zhu Xiandao's mind. Then Wang Enuo took out another 3 skill devices. Here are 3 skills. Pick one at random. Zhu Xiandao thought about it and chose a skill machine with a flaming fist printed on it. Then Zhu Xiandao quickly left Biji under Wang Luna's disgusted eyes. If he didn't leave, Zhu Xiandao even felt that he would be eaten alive by this woman. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao came to Jinling Center again and replenished all the power consumed by his Min Xiao. While Min Xiao was still in the process of treatment, Zhu Xiandao suddenly thought of something. That. Zhu Xiandao immediately took out the Pokémon book, opened the video and greeted him. Is it over? Zhu Xiandao said expressionlessly. Win or lose? Won, and it was 6-1. Zhu Xiandao said proudly. Well done. Seeing that his father finally praised him once, Zhu Xiandao was even happier. By the way, the head of the Xianshan Zhu family, Zhu Kun, knew my identity and an address before. Zhu Xiandao also spoke again, to let his father prepare. It's okay. The moment you appeared, I knew that my information would be known by others. Anyway, he was not my opponent back then, and it's the same now. Zhu Xianlui also said with confidence and pride. The protagonist's mouth twitched, not knowing where his father got such great confidence, and finally he was a little emotional. A tiger father will have a dog son, and he can't embarrass his father. I have another thing to say. Zhu Xiandao was also a little nervous, and he didn't know how to start. Just say it. If you have anything to say, don't be like a woman. Looking at Zhu Xiandao's attitude, Zhu Xianlui also said with a serious face. It's like this. I may find a daughter-in-law for you. Zhu Xiandao also said a little nervously. After all, he still hopes to get his father's recognition and praise for this kind of thing. Really? Then which family is she from? After hearing this, Zhu Xianlui's eyes were filled with curiosity. She is the eldest daughter of the Zhu family in Xianshan, and also Zhu Kun's daughter Zhu Feng. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, he looked at his father's expression seriously. At this time, Zhu Xianlui's mouth twitched slightly. After being silent for less than 2 seconds, Zhu Xianlui still said expressionlessly, not bad. After hearing his father's reply, Zhu Xiandao was also silent. He loved his father so much that he really had no expression at all. Was he a facial paralysis? Could he give himself some expression, shock, surprise, or dissatisfaction? Remember to bring it back when you have time so that we can see it. Zhu Xianlui said here. Zhu Xiandao also nodded. I know. If there is nothing else, then hang up. Remember to be careful when you are alone outside. After Zhu Xianlui finished speaking, he hung up the phone directly. Zhu Xiandao was also speechless. Bored Zhu Xiandao also picked up the newspaper next to him and read it. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao also saw a piece of news that surprised him a little. A man ran into her at the Venice amusement park. Looking at the headline news, Zhu Xiandao even felt a little familiar. Wasn't this the scene where he and Master Zhu Feng met? It was nothing more than a gender swap. Chapter 106 Fishing Contest. Zhu Xiandao also simply looked at the news above. The general meaning was that a man encountered a red and white elf with a bird-like appearance while playing in the city of Venice. It was suspected to be a legendary beast. Although Zhu Xiandao was surprised, Zhu Xiandao was sure that it was definitely the legendary Beastaceous. Then Zhu Xiandao continued to look at other news, and then Zhu Xiandao saw a more interesting news. I didn't expect that a fishing competition would be held in Taehu Lake tomorrow. It's just right that I can go and see it now. Then Zhu Xiandao also came to the front desk to take back his manus. After doing all this, Zhu Xiandao also came to the jewelry store, remade the necklace, and put the evolution stone in it. After putting it away, Zhu Xiandao also directly gave it to Heli Bei, and now Zhu Xiandao also wanted to find a place to try the evolution stone. Then Zhu Xiandao simply purchased the supplies he needed in the prop city and left by train. Didn't Zhu Xiandao arrive in the afternoon? Yushan City and Taehu Lake is the tourist attraction here, and it is also the venue for tomorrow's fishing competition. Zhu Xiandao, who had nothing to do, went straight to the competition site to register. After a brief understanding, Zhu Xiandao also found that fishing also has rewards. The top 3 can get prizes. The first place can get a high-tech fishing rod, a world-class cruise ship ticket and a mysterious water drop, plus 100,000 elf coins. The second place can get a high-tech fishing rod and a high-quality water stone, plus 50,000 elf coins. The third place can get a luxury fishing rod, a river skill machine. If I'm lucky, I can get some prizes. After registering, Zhu Xiandao also found a hotel nearby to stay. Use all the lottery opportunities together. Zhu Xiandao also lay on the bed and called the system in his mind. A training card, a fossil resurrection machine, and a talent 3 enhancement potion. Hearing the system's prompt sound, he was even more excited, sitting up from the bed, his face full of excitement. There were 3 lottery opportunities in total, and he actually got 2 good things. He was simply possessed by the Emperor of Luck. However, Zhu Xiandao was somewhat confused about the fossil resurrection period. What is this fossil resurrection machine for? From the literal meaning, Zhu Xiandao saw that it was no different from resurrection, but he did not quite understand the specific function. Then the system began to explain this function, which was basically the same as the effect in the animation, and could revive ancient Pokémon. Of course, before resurrection, it must be a complete fossil, and it must be passed through the resurrection machine to extract the genes inside and reassemble it into a new Pokémon. Of course, the resurrected Pokémon. There must be some differences from the previous ones, which is equivalent to a clone, but the clone is not complete, and the Pokémon resurrected in this way will also have rock attributes. But after all, it was given by the system, so it is also a little different from the one in the animation. This machine comes with space folding technology. When not in use, it is like an ordinary metal ball, and when in use, it can be instantly unfolded into a resurrection machine. Moreover, the resurrection machine produced by the system does not require a complete fossil. As long as there is a fossil to extract genes, it can be resurrected. At this time, watching the introduction of the system, Zhu Xiandao was extremely excited. He now had only one idea, that is, he must find fossils. You have to know that the elves in ancient times were much stronger than they are now. It was not an exaggeration to say that there were elves and mythical beasts everywhere at that time. If I'm lucky enough to get the fossils of mythical beasts, I will make a fortune. Use the skill machine. Get the skill machine big self-explosion. Zhu Xiandao suddenly felt that his luck today was simply bursting, and he got another powerful skill. Then Zhu Xiandao also gave the flame fist he had obtained before to Heli Bei, and also let Nidoking learn the flame fist and big self-exposure. After learning, Zhu Xiandao also took out the talent enhancement potion directly. Then the same syringe as last time appeared in Zhu Xiandao's hand, and Zhu Xiandao also directly injected the talent enhancement potion directly into Nidoking's body. Nidoking also slowly fell asleep. After doing all this, Zhu Xiandao took out the elf illustration again, and dialed Zhu Ziban's phone number. Have you caused any big trouble again? As soon as the call was connected, Zhu Ziban looked at Zhu Xiandao with surprise. What do you mean I've caused a big trouble again? I'm not a troublemaker. Zhu Xiandao said speechlessly. No one comes to visit you for no reason. Tell me, what's the matter? Zhu Zhi shook his head. I need some fossils, the stronger the better. I wonder if our zoo family has any. Zhu Xiandao also said excitedly. After all, the zoo family is a big family. Maybe they really have such strange things. Fossils, and the stronger the better? Are there strong and weak fossils? What do you want this thing for? Zhu Zhi's face was even more confused. It's the fossil of the ancient elves. The stronger they were when they were alive, the better. I just suddenly became more interested in these things. Zhu Xiandao also said with a smile. After all, it's better for Zhu Xiandao not to say some things. After all, Zhu Xiandao couldn't explain clearly where he got this thing from. And Zhu Xiandao didn't want to tell others that he had a system. It does exist, but I don't know if it's strong or not. Anyway, your grandfather has several pieces. He likes these things. I'll ask for you later. After thinking about it, Zhu Zhi said again. Zhu Zhi racked his brains, but couldn't figure out what Zhu Xiandao wanted this kind of fossil for. In his eyes, this ancient fossil is not even as valuable as diamonds. Thank you, second uncle. Zhu Xiandao was also very excited. He didn't expect that the zoo family really had it, and there was more than one. If a divine beast could be resurrected and upgraded to the top level through the system, wouldn't it be invincible in the world? After a simple communication, the two hung up the phone. After a simple dinner, Zhu Xiandao began to wander around Yushan City. After all, it was too boring to be alone in a hotel, so Zhu Xiandao also planned to see if he could find something to do. Later, Zhu Xiandao also found that the water system in this city was really developed, and it could be said that there was water everywhere. And it also formed an extremely pleasing pattern, which made Zhu Xiandao feel like he had come to the world of water. Chapter 107 Side Quest. Trigger the side quest. When Zhu Xiandao was strolling around and enjoying the water world, the system's voice suddenly sounded again. Zhu Xiandao was also excited. Every time the system released a side quest, there was a very high reward. Side quest help. Please rush to the quest location within 30 minutes and lend a hand to the quest elf. The reward is unknown. Seeing the quest released by the system, Zhu Xiandao was also confused. It was the first time that Zhu Xiandao encountered such a situation. He didn't know what the reward was. What does the system mean by unknown reward? Zhu Xiandao also looked strange. Shouldn't the system tell you the reward in advance? If he worked hard for a long time and finally found that he didn't want the reward at all, wouldn't he lose a lot? This quest does not require fighting, so the quest is relatively simple, so the system will not give any reward. And the so-called reward is also automatically reported by the quest elf. As for what kind of reward the elf will report, the system does not know. The host can give up the quest without punishment. Please consider it yourself. The system explained again. But that's not right. Didn't the divine beast we met last time say that it would give us the water of purification? Wasn't that something you did with the system? Zhu Xiandao said with a puzzled look on his face. The reward last time was very clear, and it was given by the divine beast itself. Zhu Xiandao could think that all this was controlled by the system, but it seemed that the meaning of the system was completely different. Last time it was a divine beast, and it would definitely give us the reward. Whether it was the host who completed the task or someone else who completed the task, the reward would be the same. The system explained again. After hearing the system's explanation, Zhu Xiandao wanted to pull out the system and beat it up. The system didn't give him any reward when he performed the task last time. It was completely treating him like a fool. However, after ordinary people get the water of purification, the effect is relatively small. With the help of the system, the water of purification in the host's body has been fully utilized. The system also spoke again. After hearing the system's explanation, Zhu Xiandao was in a better mood. No matter what, the system still gave him some effect. Helplessly, Zhu Xiandao didn't want to think about it. Anyway, there was nothing to do now, so he took on this task and at least went to see it. Then Zhu Xiandao summoned the Pidgeot and flew directly to the sky, heading for the mission location. After arriving at the mission location, Zhu Xiandao found that the mission location was empty and there was no elf at all. What's going on? Did the system give the wrong location? Zhu Xiandao then turned on the system again, and looking at the system range positioning, he could confirm that it was here. But Zhu Xiandao looked around, and there was still no elf. Then Zhu Xiandao looked carefully, and suddenly Zhu Xiandao also noticed something wrong. This wind is a bit strange, and it's a north wind. Zhu Xiandao also looked puzzled. Logically speaking, it was just the beginning of autumn, and there should be no north wind. Then Zhu Xiandao once again took the Pidgeot to the top of the mission location, and then looked down from above. Then Zhu Xiandao found that this was a forest with few people, and it was nighttime, so it could be said that the view was completely blocked. Fly down. Zhu Xiandao immediately controlled the Pidgeot to slowly descend. Since the system said that the elf was nearby, it must be there. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao also came to the woods, and then he found a lake in front of him. And there was a figure of an elf in the lake. Water King, talent level 6. Level? Zhu Xiandao's eyes lit up. He didn't expect to find another beast. Needless to say, as long as the task can be completed, the reward given by the beast will definitely not be low. At this time, Water King was by the lake, resting and watching Zhu Xiandao appear, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. The moment Zhu Xiandao just appeared, Water King also recognized Zhu Xiandao, knowing that Zhu Xiandao was the one who rescued the elves from the adventure group in that forest. Then the two looked at each other. Zhu Xiandao was also waiting for Water King to issue an order, but after waiting for a long time, Water King did not move at all. Zhu Xiandao also looked at it in confusion, and suddenly Zhu Xiandao also found that Water King's sitting posture was a little wrong. It seemed that he was resting, but Zhu Xiandao's enhanced facial features could feel that Water King was panting at this time. Zhu Xiandao was also puzzled. Divine beasts all have nearly endless physical strength. What happened to make a divine beast consume so much physical strength? However, Zhu Xiandao was relieved. It seemed that it was just excessive physical strength consumption. If that was the case, then this mission would be very simple. Water King, I'm here to help you. Zhu Xiandao said as he slowly approached. He was also very nervous. You know, the one in front of him was a divine beast. If the Water King got angry, or didn't allow him to get close, his life might be lost here. The Water King also sat there motionless, without making any sound or rejection. Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused. After all, it was the first time that Zhu Xiandao saw the Water King. I don't know why, but the other party didn't seem to reject or be alert at all. Zhu Xiandao also walked to the side of the Water King and then took out some energy cubes. These things can help you recover your physical strength. After Zhu Xiandao took out the energy cubes from his backpack, he took out some recovery potions. Applying these medicines on your body can help you recover faster. Zhu Xiandao said, and he was a little nervous about writing them on his hand, and then slowly reached out to the Water King. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was even more nervous. You know, the divine beast also has its own dignity. He didn't know if his actions would upset the other party. The Water King was still sitting there quietly, without any response, just staring at Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao's hand finally touched the Water King's body, and it was cold. The Water King's body was like a body made of water. Looking at the Water King who didn't react, Zhu Xiandao became even more excited, and then he concentrated on applying medicine to the Water King. The Water King also beat Zhu Xiandao twice. After a while, after confirming that Zhu Xiandao had no ill intentions, he finally lowered his head and swallowed all the energy cubes that Zhu Xiandao took out. Chapter 108. The game begins. The squirrel behind Zhu Xiandao also looked at the divine beast Water King in front of him in confusion. After eating the energy cube, Water King's eyes were also filled with a hint of surprise, as if the person in front of him was a little different. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao also finished applying all the medicines. Rest for a while, and your physical strength will be restored by more than half. Zhu Xiandao spoke again. After all, the medicines in front of the divine beast were his own. Although they could restore physical strength, he didn't know how effective his own things would be for the divine beast. And just after Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, Water King also stood on the wall and walked towards the lake. Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused. Was he planning to leave just after recovering a little bit of physical strength? What happened? Could it be that there was another powerful divine beast chasing him? Watching Water King gradually walk into the lake, but always floating on the water, Zhu Xiandao's eyes were also filled with envy. This was simply a divine skill. And the Water King walked to the center of the lake, and then a white light shone on his body. Today, the light spread like a ripple, and then the entire lake was lit up with a bright white light. Zhu Xiandao also remembered the legend of the Water King. According to the legend, the Water King can evolve all polluted water and restore it to the cleanest and clearest water. Zhu Xiandao also had a little admiration in his heart. As the Water King, he thought about purifying water for humans every day, which was simply benefiting the world. Not long after, the light on the lake's surface also faded away. After it disappeared, the lake in front of him had become extremely clear, and Zhu Xiandao could even see the bottom at a glance. After doing all this, the Water King slowly turned around. The next moment, a dazzling white light flashed again. Then a transparent bell appeared in front of the Water King. Under the control of the Water King, the bell slowly floated towards Zhu Xiandao. Is this thing for me? Zhu Xiandao said excitedly, although he didn't know what this bell was. But since it was given by the divine beast himself, it is definitely not an ordinary item. The Water King did not speak, but nodded lightly. Zhu Xiandao picked up the bell excitedly. The next moment, the Water King also disappeared instantly. When Zhu Xiandao looked around, he found that the water light had disappeared. Zhu Xiandao also ignored it. In the end, he looked at the bell in his hand. It seemed to be made of water, but it felt like a real object. System, can you explain what this is? Zhu Xiandao said excitedly. Although he didn't know, with the system by his side, there was nothing in the world that he couldn't identify. Transparent bell, a gift from the Water King. It can emit a calming tone. While shaking the bell, call the Water King in your heart. Then, no matter where you are, the Water King will appear at the fastest speed. If used in special places, it can even attract the Phoenix King. Seeing the introduction of the system, Zhu Xiandao was even more excited. Such a good thing as simply invincible. Doesn't this mean that the Water King can take action for him for free? This is simply an invincible bodyguard. Of course, Zhu Xiandao also knew that, if it was just a simple matter, Zhu Xiandao would naturally not use it. The most important thing is that Zhu Xiandao didn't know when the Water King would arrive when he called for it. After all, the system also said that the Water King would arrive at the fastest speed. But if he waited until the Water King arrived, he would have been solved by someone. Wouldn't it be useless? As for summoning the Phoenix King, Zhu Xiandao didn't know where this so-called special place was. So that's the case. I also felt that, although I got a better prop, I shouldn't be able to use it in a short time. Then Zhu Xiandao once again took the Pidgeot back to the hotel. At noon the next day, Zhu Xiandao also came to the vicinity of Tehu Lake where the fishing competition was held. Because of the competition, there were even more people here at this time, and there were countless handsome men and beautiful women. And Zhu Xiandao was also looking at the lively scene in front of him, and he felt a little lonely in his heart. If Zhu Feng could also accompany him, then his trip would be much more interesting. But Zhu Xiandao also knew that Zhu Feng was basically a leveling madman, and she shouldn't be too interested in such activities. Zhu Xiandao looked around and found that most of the trainers here were ordinary trainers, and their eyes were even excited. After all, you can get elves here. If you can get rare elves, then for ordinary people like them, it will be a huge income. If you sell it to a rich man, you will get another sum of money. Not long after, the competition officially started, and the organizers began to invite contestants to come forward. The victory of this competition is entirely determined by the size and weight of the elves caught by the contestants. Of course, there is only one to be compared in the end. That is, no matter how many you have, only the largest and heaviest one will be considered. In other words, if you want to win, you must catch a big and heavy elf, and you must use the elf ball provided by the organizer to collect it. After all, if someone cheats, they can find out instantly. Finally, the organizers began to distribute the fishing rods and special elf balls that had been prepared long ago. The The fishing rod is just the most ordinary fishing rod, and the elf balls distributed in the 9th year are even worse than the ordinary ones on the market. Zhu Xiandao was speechless. But if you think about it, you will know that after all, this kind of competition is open to anyone, and it is free. It can be said that all the funds are paid by the organizer. There will definitely be damage to fishing rods and Pokeballs during the process, which is also paid by the organizer himself. After all the contestants found a suitable position, the competition officially began. Zhu Xiandao also took a look. The side of the meatball next to him was full of disgust. They were all low quality Pokeballs. But Zhu Xiandao had no choice. After all, this kind of Pokeball is special. Of course, the only advantage of this identifier is that it will not be counted in Zhu Xiandao's illustrations after it is recovered. Otherwise, with Zhu Xiandao's already full Pokémon, if he is comfortable, he will be teleported away instantly. The pine tree next to him has been hanging on Zhu Xiandao's shoulders, looking around curiously. I said, "Can you help me do some work and help me hold the fishing rod?" Zhu Xiandao undoubtedly looked at his squirrel, who only knew how to stick to him all day long, but did nothing to help him. A bag of special cookies. The squirrel even stretched out a finger and said meanly, "If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 109, Recapture by Force. Okay. Zhu Xiandao gritted his teeth and said he didn't expect that the squirrels had learned to take advantage of the fire, and he didn't know who they learned it from. Then he saw the squirrel, who was originally extremely bored, suddenly became extremely energetic, jumped off Zhu Xiandao's shoulder, took the fishing rod next to him, and followed Zhu Xiandao in small steps. Zhu Xiandao also took a look at the little squirrel and the long fishing rod, and didn't know why the scene seemed so funny. Zhu Xiandao also took a look at the surrounding environment, and saw that there were about a few hundred contestants, and the others were onlookers. Of course, the reason why they didn't take action was that, if they met a good elf, they would just pay for it. It was probably because of the squirrels. Many people followed the squirrels curiously. Most of them were girls, but fortunately they were still reserved. But after searching for a while, they finally found a place that satisfied them. The man immediately made some preparations, and then waited closely for the elf to take the bait. But Zhu Xiandao waited for more than 10 minutes and still didn't see any movement. As for the people around him, Zhu Xiandao saw that they had caught several elves. Not really, even if my level is poor, my luck shouldn't be so bad. Zhu Xiandao was speechless. Seeing that others had caught more and more, and then seeing that he had nothing, Zhu Xiandao felt that he should use a big move. Then Zhu Xiandao silently took out a few energy cubes, crushed them and put them into his bait bag. Then Zhu Xiandao stirred his bait again. After all, the participants had to prepare the bait for the competition. Zhu Xiandao felt that the fish he bought should not attract the elves in the sea. In this case, Zhu Xiandao added some seasoning. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao also found that his fishing rod had moved immediately, and Zhu Xiandao immediately reeled in the rod. The talent level of the carp is level 1, level 8. Looking at the energetic carp in front of him, Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly. Although it was not easy to catch an elf, the level and talent at the beginning were too low. After Zhu Xiandao changed his moon, Zhu Xiandao's fishing speed instantly became much faster. One elf after another appeared near Zhu Xiandao. However, Zhu Xiandao was speechless. What he attracted now were some particularly weak elves. Zhu Xiandao wanted to win the championship. Although Zhu Xiandao might not have the ability to win, he really had no interest in these elves with talent level 1. The third time, Zhu Xiandao caught a tadpole with talent level 2. Zhu Xiandao was speechless. This time, not only did he not catch a fish, but he also caught a tadpole, which was too small. Zhu Xiandao just wanted to throw it back into the sea, and suddenly the girl next to him ran over easily. She excitedly asked Zhu Xiandao if he could give this tadpole to her. Zhu Xiandao was also speechless. He didn't expect that a tadpole with talent level 2 would be so popular. Seeing that Zhu Xiandao was so easy to talk to, more people gathered behind Zhu Xiandao for a while. You know, although Zhu Xiandao is not interested in the elites of talent level 2, they are very rare things for ordinary people like them. Then Zhu Xiandao harvested amazing speeds faster and faster, but they were all some that Zhu Xiandao didn't like. Not only was his body small, but his talent level was also very low, and the highest was only level 2. However, after our experience, Zhu Xiandao would ask the opinions of the people behind him every time he fell into the business. If someone liked it, Zhu Xiandao would give it to them for free. If no one liked it, Zhu Xiandao would throw it directly into the sea. As time passed, many people saw Zhu Xiandao's actions, and more people surrounded Zhu Xiandao, hoping to get their satisfied elves for free. As for the other contestants, they looked at the crowd behind Zhu Xiandao with a puzzled look, and they were even more depressed, because they didn't know what bait Zhu Xiandao used. Anyway, Zhu Xiandao's speed of harvesting was so fast that he could harvest one just after throwing the fishing rod. Zhu Xiandao also felt that his hair should be treated first. In just over 10 minutes, Zhu Xiandao had already harvested hundreds of elves. Of course, Zhu Xiandao had never kept any. This time it's a big one. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, Zhu Xiandao suddenly became excited. With the experience of more than 100 times of conquering elves, the male protagonist can be sure that he has encountered a big one this time. And Zhu Xiandao also has a certain level of fishing skills. From time to time, he will release the line and start to entangle with a big guy in the water. After all, if it is a high-level fishhook, Zhu Xiandao does not need to do this at all. But for such an ordinary fishing rod, its bearing capacity is limited. Zhu Xiandao is also afraid that his excessive use of strength will cause the fishing line to be broken. After seeing Zhu Xiandao's actions, the people around him also became excited. They all realized that Zhu Xiandao had caught a big one this time. Everyone is looking forward to Zhu Xiandao quickly hoisting this big guy up. If Zhu Xiandao is not interested, then this elf will become this angry carp, talent level 2, level 24. After seeing Zhu Xiandao hanging up and facing a Pokémon, the audience around him reacted even more excitedly. I was all stunned and looked at Zhu Xiandao. There was also a smile on Zhu Xiandao's face. Although his talent level was very low, looking at his body size, it shouldn't be a big problem to win a championship. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also took out a special Pokéball and directly subdued the angry carp. But what Zhu Xiandao never expected was that the special Pokéball had just subdued the angry carp, and then it broke into pieces with a bang. Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly, looking at the angry carp in front of him. His face was full of helplessness. It turned out to be a low-quality Pokéball that couldn't even subdue such a low-level Pokémon. Rock Blast. Zhu Xiandao also said lightly, "Since the Pokéball doesn't work, then I'll beat you first." As Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the squirrel that had been wandering around stomped its feet and 5 rocks slammed onto the angry carp. The angry carp, who was originally furious and wanted to fight for 100 rounds, was instantly killed and fell to the ground unconscious. Chapter 110 Robbery. Swoosh. At this moment, a red and white Pokéball suddenly flew over and flew directly towards the angry carp. Shoot that Pokéball away. Zhu Xiandao also frowned slightly. He never thought that someone would actually want to snatch it from him. Fortunately, the squirrel was very fast. In the moment when the Pokéball had not yet flown over, the pine tree dodged and swept the Pokéball with its tail, and the Pokéball was blown away. The human sense of smell once again took out the Pokéball that broke the wisdom and put the already unconscious angry carp into it. After doing all this, Zhu Xiandao also turned his head and looked at a man in fancy clothes next to him. The man walked towards Zhu Xiandao with a calm face. "Brother, why don't you sell this angry carp to me?" the man also said with a friendly face. After all, he naturally saw Zhu Xiandao's actions just now, and maybe he could exchange with Zhu Xiandao. As for his behavior just now, he didn't feel any shame at all. The people around were also indifferent at this time. They never thought that there would be such a shameless person who came to discuss cooperation after failing to rob. How is it? I'm very interested in selling this elf to me. The man did not care about the eyes of the people around him and still said lightly, "Get lost." Zhu Xiandao said even more coldly. The news of Xiandao's words made the man's face change, but then he returned to his previous friendly appearance. "Brother, don't be so excited. After all, you won't suffer any loss if you sell this angry carp to me. I promise you that the price will satisfy you," the man said while eating eggs. Zhu Xiandao was also speechless. If someone really wanted to buy it, Zhu Xiandao would naturally consider it. But when he thought of the other party's open robbery just now, Zhu Xiandao felt sick just thinking about it. "Squirrel, leave it to you. Drive him away for me." Zhu Xiandao also caught the squirrel next to him. The man's face also changed. Just as he was about to say something, he felt a black shadow flash in front of him, followed by a sharp pain on his face. Finally, the whole person felt that the world was turning upside down, and the whole person fell to the ground fiercely. Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly. He didn't expect that the squirrel was more cruel than him. He originally just wanted to drive it away, but the squirrel hit him directly on the face. It's not hard to think about it. It's not only painful, but also blocking the faces of so many people around. It can be said that it's a complete loss of face. Damn, it hurts so much. At this time, the man also fell to the ground and kept rolling. The onlookers around were also shocked. They didn't expect Zhu Xiandao to start fighting as soon as he said, "You know, it's a crime to attack humans with elves privately." After wailing, the man also struggled to stand up from the ground and then looked at Zhu Xiandao with resentment. "You dare to hit me, and you sneak attack me with elves, you're dead," the man also said angrily. "You know, even if those people were angry before, they didn't dare to attack with elves, which was an illegal act. Moreover, although his behavior was somewhat immoral, it was hard to explain. After all, there was no evidence, and he could still bite back and say that someone else wanted to steal his elf." The more Zhu Xiandao dealt with this loving Zhu Xiandao and the brave Dali, the more he would get more and more. "Don't even think about running away. Wait for me." The man looked at Zhu Xiandao and the squirrel beside him fiercely. As for Zhu Xiandao, he was too lazy to pay attention to her. He was sure that he would be the champion this time. Then he looked at his bait and found that there was still a lot left, so he just continued fishing. The people around him were speechless when they saw Zhu Xiandao's calm expression. However, they were also waiting for Zhu Xiandao to drop a good elf again. If they could really get it, maybe they could even have a sip of soup. As time passed, the game gradually came to an end. The man in the middle naturally rushed over with the police. Originally, the man was arrogant and proud, but when Zhu Xiandao took out a badge, the man was even more shocked. Watching the police bow respectfully to Zhu Xiandao and then arrested him, the man was even more confused. What is going on? He was attacked by someone, and he was attacked by an elf. Why is the person who beat him okay? Zhu Xiandao also looked at the man with disdain. Originally, Zhu Xiandao didn't want to pay attention. But since the other party is looking for death, don't blame yourself. As for why they saw the badge and attacked Zhu Xiandao so much, it was because it was the badge that Zhu Zhi gave to Zhu Xiandao before leaving. It can be said that, as long as you have this badge, you can save Zhu Xiandao a lot of trouble, and it can be said that you have a lot of power. In the end, Zhu Xiandao also easily won the championship of the competition. After all, his opponents are just a group of ordinary people. They are not as extravagant as Zhu Xiandao, using energy cubes as bait. Zhu Xiandao also got a luxurious fishing rod and mysterious water drops. As for the boat ticket in his hand, Zhu Xiandao was also quite a headache. As for the angry carp that Zhu Xiandao got, Zhu Xiandao had already let it go. Although its qualifications were relatively excellent in the eyes of ordinary people, Zhu Xiandao didn't look down on it. And even if he took it out to sell, once he took it out, his current status didn't need that little money, so Zhu Xiandao simply let it go. As for the ticket, Zhu Xiandao also got the explanation from the event organizer. The cruise will start next week, and will sail for a week. Love on the boat will naturally have many interesting activities, such as the Jinling competition, auction and exchange meeting. If Zhu Xiandao is interested, he can take this ticket to play. Zhu Xiandao was also a little curious, although Zhu Xiandao was not very interested in the elf competition, but thought about such a high-end place, they might have what they need. Then first of all, he looked at the location. The boarding place was in Haocheng, but he decided to rush to Haoheng to challenge the gym first, and he could also participate in the cruise. It was also a way for Zhu Xiandao, and he could kill two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, Zhu Xiandao immediately returned to the hotel and began to pack his backpack and luggage to leave. Chapter 111 New Mission. The environment here is really extraordinary. It is worthy of being called a wealthy city. It is too prosperous here. Zhu Xiandao looked at the prosperous areas of Haoheng and didn't know what to say for a moment. Especially when he saw the behemoth in front of him. Many people had already come here. Looking at the people coming and going around him, Zhu Xiandao could see that the people here were either rich or powerful, and none of them were simple. On the other side, Zhu Xiandao also waited quietly for a while with the squirrel on his shoulder. There was still some time before the ticket check. In the week here, Zhu Xiandao also went to several cities and participated in some informal competitions. Although the prizes were not rare treasures, the process was very interesting. During this period, he also received the news that Zhu Xiandao needed. Grandpa did have several ancient fossils. However, after getting those ancient fossils, which were some common elf fossils in ancient times, Zhu Xiandao was speechless. Zhu Xiandao also asked Zhu Zhi to continue looking for the fossils he needed. On the other hand, Zhu Xiandao also felt that it was better to find what he needed by himself. There is a saying that goes, it is better to rely on oneself than on others, and it is better to rely on oneself than on Buddha. Are you Zhu Xiandao? Just as Zhu Xiandao picked up the ticket and boarded the ship, a puzzled voice came from behind Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao turned his head and found that there was a man in a suit standing behind him. He looked only a few years older than him. Zhu Xiandao thought about it and felt that he didn't know the man in front of him at all. It's you, Zhu Xiandao. The man said more affirmatively. I don't know who you are, Zhu Xiandao said puzzledly. Look, I was so excited that I forgot to introduce myself for a moment. My name is Zuhu. You should have heard of my name, right? The man began to introduce himself. And Zhu Xiandao suddenly realized that Zuhu was also heard of by Zhu Xiandao. He was a descendant of the Zhu family, and he represented the Zhu family in the competition 2 years ago. I heard Zhu King talk about you, Zhu Xiandao said politely. After all, he was a member of the family. Now that you mention it, it's Zhu King. I haven't seen her for more than a year, Zuhu also said with some emotion. But I didn't expect to meet you here. Your spirited performance at the party is well known to everyone. I didn't expect that our Zhu family would produce such a hero like you. The man also looked at Zhu Xiandao curiously. He wanted to know if Zhu Xiandao was a genius among geniuses as he had heard. I was just lucky there. I'm not a hero. Compared with brother Zhu, I'm far behind. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, he began to wonder. I heard Zhu King say before that you went to the Elf Alliance to work, right? Why are you here? Of course I'm on a mission, Zuhu also said lightly. Zhu Xiandao was shocked by what he said to Zuhu. What's so surprising about this? Although I'm the blade of the Elf Alliance, I'm just a small captain of the search officer. This time I came here to investigate some things. Zuhu did not hide anything. After all, in Zuhu's eyes, everyone is a family, and Zhu Xiandao's status is even higher than his own. Even if he told Zhu Xiandao about what he did, he would not be interested in it because of his status. Come here to investigate things? Zhu Xiandao was even more surprised. Could it be that there is a criminal gang on this ship? You know, the Elf Alliance manages the security of the entire country, and Zuhu in front of him, although he is only a small captain, his position is an investigator. The task of an investigator is basically to run around and investigate cases, and each case is a special case, not a small case. Okay, this is all I can say, don't ask anything else. Zuhu seemed to know that Zhu Xiandao would continue to ask questions, and he was the first to speak. After hearing this, Zhu Xiandao felt a little helpless. After all, he was carrying out a mission, and it was not good for him to inquire about it. But Zhu Xiandao was sure that it seemed that there would really be some sudden cases this time. You haven't said it yet, why are you here? Zuhu also asked back. I just won a fishing competition and got a boat ticket, so I thought I'd come over to join in the fun. Zhu Xiandao said lightly. Okay, then I still have some things to do and try to stay in crowded places later. If there is any emergency, contact me. After Zuhu finished speaking, the two also left their contact information and then separated again. After all, Zuhu had more things to do, which was different from Zhu Xiandao coming here to play. The speed of ticket checking was also very fast. In less than 10 minutes, the yacht also started to move. On the other side, Zhu Xiandao once again experienced what the world of the rich is. It can be said that every room here is extremely luxurious. Even the food here is delicious and delicious. It can be said that it is a world that ordinary people can't even think of. Because of Zuhu's appearance, Zhu Xiandao also took the lead in investigating the structure of the entire cruise ship. It arrived soon, and a welcome reception was held on the ship in the evening. In fact, many people talked in the reception hall and met many new friends. Zhu Xiandao also made a simple observation and found that in addition to the people from his own Shenlong country, there were also many foreign friends. In addition, Zhu Xiandao also learned about tomorrow's activities at the cocktail party. In addition to the singing and dancing carnival, there will be an elf battle tomorrow. However, this elite battle is different from the previous ones. Each person can only send out one elf, and the winner will be decided in one game. As for the prizes that the winner of the game can get, the captain did not say it clearly. Zhu Xiandao was not interested in the following things and did not talk to others. Side mission released. Zhu Xiandao had just left the hotel and was about to return to his room. When he was resting, the voice of the system came to his mind again. Zhu Xiandao's face was also washed. You know, every time he performs a mission, he can get a lot of rewards, and the prizes given by the system are all good things. I want to know what the side mission is. Zhu Xiandao suddenly became excited, but suddenly Zhu Xiandao also thought of Zuhu, whom he met today. Chapter 112, The Devil Again. Destruction of branch missions. Once accepted, you cannot give up, otherwise all previous rewards will be taken back. Mission 1, where some people who seem to be frustrated and ask the host to find out their purpose. After completing the mission, you can get the method of making rainbow energy blocks and draw 3 times. Mission 2, automatically open after completing mission 1. Zhu Xiandao's heart also looked like it was just as expected. He knew without thinking that this matter was definitely related to Zuhu. In this case, he could even ask Zuhu to help investigate the other party's true purpose. However, when he thought that this was another soul mission, he didn't know what he needed to do for each mission. Male Zhu Xiandao also knew that, although the rewards for this kind of serial mission were very rich, it also meant that the difficulty would increase several times. However, when he thought that he could get the method of making rainbow energy blocks as soon as the mission was completed, Zhu Xiandao was more looking forward to the next mission and how rich the reward he would get. However, Zhu Xiandao was also thinking about where he should go to find these people now. After all, Zhu Xiandao had investigated this throttle before. It can be said to be extremely large. It takes nearly an hour to walk back and forth on the deck. Moreover, it is even more difficult to find those suspicious people on such a huge ship and investigate their purpose. Just when Zhu Xiandao was having a headache and didn't know how to think about finding people, he suddenly heard the sound of several people talking in a dark corner not far ahead. Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused. You know, most of the guests are in the reception hall now, and there are still people hiding in such a secret place to talk at this time. You don't need to think about it, you know, there must be something secret to do. It shouldn't be such a coincidence that I ran into it. Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused, but anyway, Zhu Xiandao had to find out Then he told the squirrel on his shoulder not to make any sound, and Zhu Xiandao also carefully approached the place where the few people were talking. Fortunately, Zhu Xiandao's body was strengthened by the system, or it can be said that Zhu Xiandao's control over his body has reached a level that ordinary people can't reach, and the whole process did not make a single sound. Quack, quack. After Zhu Xiandao approached, he immediately heard a series of devil's words that he couldn't understand. Zhu Xiandao was speechless, and then he took out a translator and put it on his ear. According to our intelligence, what we need is on this ship. Your task is to find him in the shortest possible time. Understood. Zhu Xiandao also found that someone was making a phone call there, but Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused. What exactly did they mean by that? However, Zhu Xiandao no longer had time to think so much. After all, he only heard this sentence, and he knew without thinking that the other party's call would end soon. If the other party came out and saw him, he knew without thinking that he would definitely die. Thinking of this, Zhu Xiandao quickly flashed to a hidden corner and hid. And then Zhu Xiandao found that in less than a few seconds, a thin man came out. Zhu Xiandao hid in a dark corner, memorized the man's face, and waited until the man left before slowly walking out. What is the other party's purpose? Could it be that they want to find an item? But what is it? Although Zhu Xiandao had already got a clue, he still knew nothing about what they wanted. Zhu Xiandao was the first to return to the room and start thinking. But after thinking for a long time, Zhu Xiandao didn't know what kind of things were hidden on this ship that could interest them. After thinking for a long time, Zhu Xiandao was thinking about whether to find Zuhu to find out the information he needed. After all, if he wanted to complete the task, there seemed to be no other way except Zuhu. However, Zhu Xiandao decided to rest for a night first. After all, there was no time limit for this task, and the cruise ship would have to sail on the sea for at least a week. There was no need for him to be so anxious. He could just give Zuhu a night to investigate, so that he could get more useful information. The next morning, after a simple wash, Zhu Xiandao also came to a cafe, a relatively remote place. This is what you need. When they just met, Zuhu took out a small box and pushed it in front of Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao also opened a gap in the small box and took a look and found some eavesdropping devices and some small monitoring equipment inside. These were all entrusted by Zhu Xiandao to Zuhu to prepare for him. Zhu Xiandao naturally told the story of the suspicious man he met last night, but Zhu Xiandao didn't have any filming equipment, so he couldn't take a picture of the other person's appearance. Zhu Xiandao also took the initiative to help. Although Zuhu didn't agree at first, he finally agreed after Zhu Xiandao's persuasion. Of course, although Zuhu didn't know what the purpose of staying was, Zuhu still believed in Zhu Xiandao very much. After all, they were all from the same family, and Zuhu naturally had some understanding of Zhu Xiandao's strength. If Zhu Xiandao was willing to help, he would be much more relaxed. After a simple chat, the two left. After leaving, Zhu Xiandao also found that there were staff on the deck to arrange the battlefield, and today's game will also be held here. And Zhu Xiandao also looked around the crowd around him, wanting to see if there were any other hidden devils. Sure enough, it's here. Zhu Xiandao looked around and finally relied on his terrifying memory to easily find the devil he had seen last night. Zhu Xiandao also picked up a drink from the table next to him, pretending to look for a friend while looking around and approaching the devil. Bang! The next second Zhu Xiandao accidentally bumped into the devil. I'm really sorry, very sorry, I didn't notice it just now. Zhu Xiandao also apologized quickly. Be more careful next time. Although the devil looked unhappy, he still spoke awkward Mandarin. After all, he had more important things to do, and it was impossible for him to make a big fuss over such a small matter. Chapter 113 The Unknown Crystal. After the devil finished speaking, he immediately turned around and left. The male Zhu Xiandao also pretended to look for a friend and quietly walked to the edge of the crowd. The next moment, a squirrel flashed by and appeared on Zhu Xiandao's shoulder. How did you succeed in your action? Zhu Xiandao said slowly to the squirrel on his shoulder. No problem. Uncle looked like such a simple thing. How could it fail? Director Ren also nodded. Director Yang just deliberately attracted the devil's attention. The purpose was to let the squirrel quietly put the electronic device on the devil. After all, with the speed of the squirrel, it can make the devil have no awareness, and the male Zhu Xiandao was also very successful. Use the squirrel to plant a bug on the devil. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also took out a pair of earplugs and put them in his ears, so that Zhu Xiandao can always eavesdrop on all the actions of the devil. Very good. The bug that Zhu Xiandao got was also brought by Zuhu. It can be said to be the latest high-tech. It can be said that it is as thin as a piece of paper and placed in the trouser legs of the devil, and the devil is no difference at all. Today, Zhu Xiandao watched the host begin to announce the elf battle competition. Then the organizer announced the prizes for the competition. At first, Zhu Xiandao was not interested, but when he saw an unknown stone on the prize stand, his eyes widened. Crystal. Zhu Xiandao's eyes widened, looking at the unknown stone in front of him in disbelief. Of course, for other people, they don't know what this stone is, but Zhu Xiandao knows it very well. In other words, this world has not yet figured out the importance of this crystal, but Zhu Xiandao is a relative in the future world. Crystal is one of the most precious materials in the world. Zhu Xiandao also took a look at the surrounding environment and found that the people around him seemed to be dismissive of the stone. You also shook your head and thought that those who can come here are all powerful people. They really don't care about this reward, especially the unknown stone. I didn't want to participate originally, but now no matter what, I must get this crystal. Then Zhu Xiandao simply went to help me and got a number plate. Of course, the people who came to this ship were either rich or noble, and they were not interested in performing like a clown. There were not many people who signed up to play, only a few dozen. In the end, Zhu Xiandao found that they were not here to fight, but to show off their elves. Most people's elves were too weak, but in terms of appearance, they were indeed more beautiful than each other. How could this be a competition? This was basically a beauty pageant. In the same way, even the spectators in the audience did not care about the battles in the competition, and everyone was discussing which elf was more beautiful. Zhu Xiandao was also speechless. He did not expect that this game would be so boring. Then Zhu Xiandao also watched his opponent summon an elf. Male Zhu Xiandao also looked at the other party like a fool. He really didn't know what the elf summoned by the other party was used for except for being beautiful. Squirrel, leave it to you. Zhu Xiandao was even too lazy to take out the elf ball. Your elf is pretty good, but it's still far inferior to mine. When the opponent saw Zhu Xiandao's squirrel appear, he also showed a look of disdain. Continuous attack. Zhu Xiandao was too lazy to waste time with such a small character and immediately ordered an attack. Just after Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the pine tree turned into a residual image, and then the opponent's elf didn't even react. Then it was blown away and fell to the ground unconscious. Seeing that he didn't think that Zhu Xiandao was not interested in his opponent's expression, he ran to his elf. He looked like his wife had died. The black suspect Zhu Xiandao also won the victory easily, and now the game is almost like this. After the squirrel appears, it can be said that basically one move can easily win. Heracris, talent level 3 level 41. After coming to the finals, Zhu Xiandao's opponent also summoned an elf in an instant. Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised. Zhu Xiandao remembered that the boy didn't seem to use this elf before. Could it be that he was planning to target him? However, Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly. Come out, Pidgeot. The moment the computer appeared, the face of the young man standing opposite Zhu Xiandao changed. He originally wanted to take out a Pokémon that targeted the squirrel to easily win, but he didn't expect that he was actually targeted. In the end, Zhu Xiandao easily influenced the victory of the game. After all, under the condition of attribute restraint, the opponent was almost killed instantly. Although Zhu Xiandao did not show the gorgeous Pokémon like others, his overwhelming strength attracted the attention of many people. Is this gentleman interested? Let's talk about cooperating with your Pokémon. I'm also quite interested. I can see that you are also a powerful trainer. It just so happens that my family is still short of a trainer. Do you think you are interested? All of a sudden, all kinds of people surrounded Zhu Xiandao. Some wanted to ask Zhu Tiandao for help, some wanted to acquire Zhu Tiandao's Pokémon, and some even wanted to make friends with him because the protagonist was powerful. But Zhu Tiandao didn't care about them and left directly after getting the prize. After all, his only goal was the crystal. After seeing the economic success, Zhu Tiandao was also satisfied with the crystal. In the future, the crystal will become his trump card. After doing all this, Zhu Tiandao also pressed the switch on his ear. Zuhu, how is it over there? Have you got any useful clues? Zhu Tiandao said immediately. The earplug on Zhu Tiandao's ear not only has the function of eavesdropping, but can also be used as a communication device. Naturally, Westlake can not only monitor all the information of the devils, but also communicate with Zhu Tiandao. No useful clues have been obtained for the time being, but according to the information, he seems to have been wandering around his suite, maybe waiting for someone. Zuhu's voice also came from the communicator. Could it be that the other party is waiting for his companions? Chapter 114, Ancient Dragon Fossils. Do you want me to go over and take a look? Zhu Tiandao said. It's better not to alert the enemy for now. After all, you have already met. If you show up again, it will easily arouse the other party's vigilance. Zuhu also shook his head. Zhu Tiandao nodded after hearing this. It was true that he was still a little too impatient. The next moment, the two heard another voice coming from the communicator. They immediately realized that this voice was the voice of the devil. Report to the leader. I have already found out that we will reach Xianming Island tonight. There will be an auction at that time. The things we need will be auctioned at the auction. Hearing the devil's voice, Zhu Tiandao and Zuhu were even more surprised. The other party actually got the clue of their target and would appear at the auction. You did a good job. The most important thing now is to get that thing, no matter what method you use. Someone will pick you up at Xianming Island when the time comes. Don't let me down. Understood, leader. I will ensure that the task is completed. After a few short sentences, there was no sound. Now that we know their target, we can make some preparations. Go to the auction and wait. He will definitely show up. Zuhu also ordered immediately. Don't worry, it's okay. Zhu Tiandao nodded and said. At night, they arrived at the port of Xianming Island. At this time, a large number of tourists came up. Of course, these tourists are not here to play on the ship, but to participate in the auction tonight. For a while, the auction hall was full of people, and everyone was waiting for the auction to start. Zhu Tiandao and Zuhu also stayed in a box. Zhu Tiandao was also a little surprised that Zuhu could get a box in such a place. After all, this is an upper class society, and it is impossible to get it without a certain power and status. Although their things will appear at the auction, have you investigated what they want? Zhu Tiandao said curiously. After all, his mission has not been completed yet, which means that he must know what the other party wants, and when the mission can be completed. It's not clear yet, but I heard that those things seem to be the finale of the auction, and even the organizers are protecting them very carefully. Zuhu said in a faint voice. Zhu Tiandao also immediately took the auction list on the wall and the table. There were all kinds of items on it, but only the finale line was blank. It seems that the official also intends to announce the finale item at the last minute. Do we still need to play mystery? Zhu Tiandao said unhappily. Needless to say, those who really want to get Asian items must have already got clues and made preparations. No way. Now we can only wait. After all, although there are people who know the news, we have no way to find out. Zuhu also said helplessly. After all, the officials here are foreigners. Although they have great power, they can't do anything if they don't cooperate. It's okay, as long as we know the other party's purpose. As long as the things appear, I believe they will definitely take action. You stay here, I'll go out and check again. After Zuhu finished speaking, he also walked out of the private room. Finally, Zhu Tiandao was also bored and flipping through the items on the auction list. Finally, Zhu Tiandao suddenly found a fossil on the auction list. Zhu Tiandao immediately became excited. Then he looked at the annotation and found that it was a fossil of an ancient elf, and it did not say what kind of elf it was. Although I don't know what kind of elf it is, I can take a picture of it. Zhu Xiandao also muttered to himself. As time passed, the auction officially began. As the auction began, the atmosphere became more and more intense. Zhu Xiandao kept looking at the position below the stage, and found that the devil he had seen before was also sitting near the stage. The next auction is an ancient fossil. Just as Zhu Xiandao was observing the devil, the auctioneer's voice also brought Zhu Xiandao back to his senses. Zhu Xiandao also came back to his senses and looked at the fossil on the stage. But after looking at it for a long time, Zhu Xiandao couldn't tell what kind of elf it was. We also specially asked an expert to identify it and found that it is a fossil of an evil dragon. Although this fossil is not complete, it is also a good item as a collection. The reserve price is 500,000 and each bid must not be less than 10,000. The auctioneer had just finished speaking and Zhu Xiandao was ecstatic at this time. Evil dragons were extremely powerful in ancient times. After all, no one who was related to the dragon clan was weak. And the evil dragon was the one with super combat power among all the dragon clans. I don't know if it was because this ancient fossil was not complete, so there were not many people willing to buy it. Then Zhu Xiandao also got this ancient fossil of an evil dragon at a price of 1.3 million. And the others also looked at the private room, where Zhu Xiandao was with a puzzled look. After all, it was just an ancient fossil. Although the price of 1.3 million is not very expensive, the most expensive ancient fossils may be sold for tens of millions. But the premise is that it must be a complete ancient fossil. For an incomplete ancient fossil like this, any slight loss will greatly reduce the value. So the male protagonist spent 1.3 million to buy this incomplete ancient fossil, and in the eyes of others, he looked like a fool. Then the auction continued, and Zhu Xiandao no longer had the heart to care about it. After paying the money, someone immediately took the ancient fossil that Zhu Xiandao had auctioned and sent it to the private room. At this time, Zhu Xiandao also happily put the ancient fossil into his backpack. With the resurrection machine in his backpack, Zhu Xiandao could even imagine that he could revive an evil dragon spirit. I know that many people here are here for our finale today. Now let's invite our finale to appear. Then, the auctioneer's voice sounded again in the hall. And Zhu Xiandao also turned his head, wanting to see what kind of finale item could be remembered by so many people. Then he saw two beautiful women wearing bunny girls, pushing a small cart and slowly walking to the auction table. There was a red cloth covering the car, and it could be seen that there was a box underneath. Chapter 115 Restrictions Lifted. This is the finale item of our auction, the sister said as she refreshed her mood. The red cloth was then pulled away by Zhu Xiandao, and he saw a small box on the cart with a silver feather in it. After all the fuss, they just want this feather? Looking at the feather, Zhu Xiandao was even more amused. Could this be called the finale item? But after Zhu Xiandao took a closer look, his face suddenly changed. Could this be the feather of the mythical beast Lugia? Congratulations to the host for completing the task, obtaining the method of making the rainbow energy block, and 3 draws. Task 2 released. The voice of the system also rang in Zhu Xiandao's mind, and Zhu Xiandao was even more certain that the devil's purpose was definitely for the feather of this mythical beast. Zhu Xiandao knew that, as long as he could get the feather of Lugia, he could summon Lugia through certain methods. It seems that the last time we saw the devils, their goal was also the divine beast. Could it be that they are also planning to summon the divine beast this time? Zhu Xiandao suddenly remembered that he met a few devils at the beach last time. It seemed that every time they appeared, they were related to the divine beast. Zuhu, their goal is definitely the feather of the divine beast. Arrange people immediately. They will definitely take action. And they have their support on Xianming Island. Now block all exits immediately. Zhu Xiandao also said quickly. Are you kidding me? This is the feather of the divine beast Lugia. On the other side, Zuhu was also completely shocked. Anything about the divine beast was not something that a small captain like him could decide. I will report this matter immediately. You keep an eye on it for me. Then you have to be quick. I'm not sure when they will take action. Zhu Xiandao also said anxiously. You know, if you encounter a divine beast and provoke it, the consequences will be very terrible. Especially a divine beast like Lugia is called the sea god. Once the sea cucumber gets angry, it can even cause a tsunami around the world and can easily turn all the land into the sea. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also looked at the feather on the stage, wondering what the organizer of this event was thinking. Could it be that they couldn't figure out how such a good thing could be auctioned? I think everyone should be very confused. Why is the finale a feather? I think many people don't know about this feather. This is the feather of the legendary beast Lugia, also known as the feather of the sea god. As the auctioneer finished speaking, everyone at the auction site was even more shocked. Although everyone didn't recognize this feather, after hearing the auctioneer's words, everyone immediately knew how valuable this sea beast feather was. The exclamations were like waves, one after another. At this time, Zhu Xiandao couldn't help but want to go up and beat them up. Check the task. Zhu Xiandao was also speechless, and then he also looked at his task too. Repel or destroy the enemy, successfully prevent them from getting the feather of the sea god. Complete the task, open the limit of the elf illustration, and multiply the number of draws by 3. After completing task 2, task 3 will be automatically opened. After seeing the system prompt, Zhu Xiandao was also confused. What does it mean to open the limit of the elf illustration? Opening the limit means that the host can cultivate elves without limit. As the system explained, Zhu Xiandao was also full of joy. You must know that the reason why everyone in this world can only get 6 elves at most is because everything is controlled by the headquarters of the Elf Alliance. After all, everyone's energy is limited. It takes a lot of time and energy to cultivate and operate. Even if you get a full level elf, you have to spend time to cultivate trust. Imagine, if a person can carry unlimited elves, doesn't it mean that anyone can summon an army at will? It is no exaggeration to say that, if you meet such a person, you can summon countless elves anytime and anywhere, to launch a wave of elves. This is a disaster for any leader of any country, so the management headquarters also restricts everyone. In addition, if the number of elites you have is too large, then the daily food consumption is also a very large burden. Therefore, the Pokémon League also stipulates that each trainer can only carry a maximum of 6 Pokémons. Even in regular competitions, there are rarely 6v6 situations. Most competitions are 1v1, and at most 3v3. Of course, even if some people want to break the limit of Pokémons, it is useless. Each person can only obtain the qualification of 6 Pokémons at most. In addition to the 6 Pokémons that were recognized by the Pokémon League at the beginning, even if you have captured a Pokémon, the Pokémon will make the Pokéball invalid. It can be said that the Pokémon also has great restrictions on the person. No one can use more than 6 Pokémons. This is a rule that everyone knows, and no one has ever tried to break it. But Zhu Xiandao is different. Zhu Xiandao uses the Ufota system, and the system can break any rule in the world. In other words, if Zhu Xiandao wants, then although Zhu Xiandao's Pokémon. Doesn't this mean that I can easily summon an army? When Zhu Xiandao thought of this, his face was full of surprise. You know, if he can summon an army anytime and anywhere, Zhu Xiandao is even confident that he can attack the next country alone. When he thought of this, Zhu Xiandao decided to complete this task no matter what. 200 million. Just when Zhu Xiandao was thinking about it, the voice of the auctioneer was heard under the auction table. Hainan was so excited that he almost forgot that he still had legitimate things to do. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was staring at the devil more intently, and he would never let him succeed no matter what. Whether it was the adverse consequences that the beast might cause, or the special conditions given by the system. No matter from which aspect, Zhu Xiandao had countless reasons to stop it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 Tracking. As the price got higher and higher, Zhu Xiandao also saw that the devil's expression became more and more nervous. After all, the devil's mission was to take the feather no matter what, but if he really competed with this group of people, based on his strength, he would have no chance at all. Unexpectedly, Zhu Xiandao was even more troubled here. If Zhu Hao hadn't told him that he must abide by the rules of the investigator, Zhu Xiandao would have wanted to take action directly to get rid of the devil in front of him. But now he has to go to great lengths, waste so much time, and have to worry about so many things. Disaster Elf. Zhu Xiandao just finished speaking, and the elf appeared behind Zhu Xiandao in an instant. Did you see that, man? Zhu Xiandao pointed at the devil. After taking a look, the disaster elf nodded, not knowing what Zhu Xiandao was going to do. I'll give you a mission, to keep an eye on him. If he does anything wrong, just kill him. Zhu Xiandao thought about it and spoke again. No matter what, Zhu Xiandao must ensure that the mission is completed. Even if it was a violation of the rules, Zhu Xiandao had to get rid of it. No matter what, as long as the feather was not taken away by the devils, his mission would be completed. The disaster elf nodded and finally disappeared quickly in the room. Then Zhu Xiandao prayed that Zuhu would be more powerful. If not, these could only break the rules and get rid of people directly. Of course, Zhu Xiandao also knew that the reason why Zuhu tried so hard to stop it was that he wanted to catch a live person to ask for information. But Zhu Xiandao didn't have the leisure to pay attention to them and ask for any information. Zhu Xiandao had only one thing to do now, that is, no matter how much it cost, he had to stop it. This time it was a haul, and the price of the auction was getting higher and higher. Not long after, the number of competitors was getting smaller and smaller. Smoke Dan. Suddenly a scream sounded, and the sound shocked everyone in the auction. Then an elf flashed by, and the moment he just appeared, he just opened his mouth, and countless thick smoke floated out of his mouth, and filled the hall. Zhu Xiandao was also shocked. He never expected that the devil would choose to attack at this time. At the moment, when the devil just made a sound, a figure suddenly appeared beside the devil quickly, and this figure made a move in an instant, and his hand instantly turned into a sickle. He chopped directly at the devil, and the rules at this time were completely unaware of the elves that appeared beside him. Then there was a loud bang, and the devil fell directly to the ground. Zhu Xiandao quickly left the private room, and then waved his hand again, and a Pokeball appeared in the air. Pidgeot, use the wind to blow away the smoke. Zhu Xiandao quickly gave orders. After all, Zhu Xiandao didn't know whether there were any companions of this devil in this auction venue. The male protagonist had to control the scene as quickly as possible. After all, as long as the smoke could be blown away, it would be very easy to defend the feathers of the beast with the original hand position of the auction. After the smoke was blown away, Zhu Xiandao saw that the disaster elf had already solved the devil, and the devil was now lying on the ground unconscious. Zhu Xiandao also breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he had gotten through it safely. But just when Zhu Xiandao breathed a sigh of relief, he was shocked when he turned around and saw the auction platform. Where is the feather of the mythical beast? It was a short moment, and the feather of the mythical beast that was originally placed in the box had already disappeared. Zhu Xiandao quickly rushed to the auction platform and grabbed the auctioneer's collar and said angrily, "What's going on? Where did the feather of the mythical beast go?" The auctioneer was also panicked at this time. Looking at Zhu Xiandao's angry eyes and the feather of the mythical beast that had long disappeared, his heart suddenly became confused. I don't know. It has nothing to do with me," the auctioneer said tremblingly. If he was regarded as an accomplice, he would not be able to save his life. Zhu Xiandao was also angry, but he still let go. "Zuhu, did you see anyone rushing out of the auction club?" Zhu Xiandao immediately said loudly to Zuhu on the other side of the headset. "Yes, I saw a person, and he flew north on a flying dragon." Zuhu responded quickly. "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you to guard the exit? Why did you let someone escape on a spirit?" Zhu Xiandao was even more disappointed. He said that he had asked them to be prepared, but they could still watch a living person escape. Could it be that they didn't even have the ability to stop it? "We can't do anything." Suddenly, more than 20 people attacked. 100,000 volts. Zuhu said, while quickly ordering his spirit. Zhu Xiandao almost figured it out. It turned out that the other party was really well prepared this time. It was even a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Zhu Xiandao waved his hand and said, I will temporarily take it back in Ninjing. Then he immediately grabbed the squirrel and ran directly to the Pidgeot. Get out now. Zhu Xiandao said impatiently. You know, if they really took it away, it would be a small matter if the mission of the feather of the beast was not completed, but if they angered the beast, the consequences might even lead to the destruction of the world. Chase to the north. The male protagonist roughly determined the direction and immediately gave the order. Then the Pidgeot flashed and sped up. But after flying for more than 10 minutes, Zhu Xiandao still did not find any clues. Where did it go? Zhu Xiandao said impatiently. You know, if you can't find it, the consequences will definitely be serious. But now if you want to find the other party, it is tantamount to looking for a needle in a haystack. In this vast ocean, the range is too wide. No. Where did the double bomb gas go? Zhu Xiandao quickly recalled what happened just now. Suddenly, he remembered that after the Pidgeot cleared the smoke in the venue, in addition to the fallen Japanese, the double bomb gas also disappeared. Use the tracking card. Zhu Xiandao immediately ordered. Tracking successful. After a few seconds, the system prompt sound rang in Zhu Xiandao's mind. At this time, Zhu Xiandao also found that there was a red dot flashing in the west, 3 kilometers away from him. It turned out that he changed his direction midway. Chapter 117. Instant kill. I'll see where you run this time. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was even more confident. Under the effect of the system plugin, Zhu Xiandao didn't think anyone could escape the system's lock. However, looking at the direction of the other party's escape, Zhu Xiandao was a little surprised. You know, the West is the territory of China. I didn't expect the other party to be so smart. The more dangerous the place, the safer it is. After all, as long as they get the feathers of the beast, as long as they can escape safely, then they have countless ways to make the feathers of the beast disappear from China without anyone noticing. It has to be said that the other party's plan is very detailed. If Zhu Xiandao didn't have the system, he would even be fooled by the other party. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao also saw a figure under the system's plugin map. Flying Dragon Talent Level 3 Level 44. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao saw a black dot in the distance slowly enlarged, and a man on a flying dragon appeared in front of Zhu Xiandao. At this time, the man didn't notice the appearance of Zhu Xiandao behind him. A flash of lightning just hit it. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, he grabbed Pidgeot's neck tightly with both hands. Then he saw Pidgeot's speed suddenly turned into a flash of lightning and quickly flew towards the unsuspecting Felang in front. When Zhu Xiandao got closer and closer, the man finally noticed it, but he just turned his head and couldn't even see it clearly. Then he felt a dizzy feeling, and the whole person flew into the air, and then the whole person fell directly downwards. I didn't expect the reaction speed to be so fast. Felang actually dodged a little at the critical moment. Zhu Xiandao also frowned slightly. You know, the previous attack was enough to make the trainer incapable, but Felang blocked the attack at the critical moment. Follow up immediately. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, Pidgeot also flew downwards quickly. After a brief loss of consciousness, Felang immediately flew down and caught his trainer, and the trainer finally reacted at this time and realized that he was being pursued. The man also had a trace of doubt on his face. He knew that his whereabouts were even more erratic. How did Zhu Xiandao find him, and so accurately? Airblade. The man also gave orders quickly. Just as the man finished speaking, countless air blades appeared in the air in an instant. Get out of the way. Zhu Xiandao quickly gave orders. You know, this time it was a real battle, not just a battle between businesses, but also a battle between people. Fortunately, his nosebird was fast enough and easily snatched the opponent's airblade. Could it be that the airblade passed by Zhu Xiandao? Zhu Xiandao felt a lingering fear. But when Zhu Xiandao just breathed a sigh of relief, another voice sounded. Come out, giant shark. Following the voice, a huge shark appeared on the sea. Giant shark talent level 3 level 45. Giant shark uses water cannon. Just as the man finished speaking, the giant shark opened its mouth and a column of water shot towards the nosebird in the sky. Get out of the way. Zhu Xiandao's face was even more gloomy. It seemed that the other party no longer planned to escape. and wanted to get rid of him. In this case, let's have a good time and see who is stronger. Come out and kill the mean Xiao. Just as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, a beautiful mean Xiao appeared on the sea. With the appearance of mean Xiao, Zhu Xiandao was also full of fighting spirit at this time, intending to have a good fight with this devil. And seeing the appearance of mean Xiao, the man was also shocked. Dragon wave. As Zhu Xiandao spoke, the tail of mean Xiao just said also. It flicked lightly in the sea, and then the sea turned into waves. And the waves even formed the shape of a giant dragon, and swallowed the giant shark directly. Get out of the way. The man also roared. Still want to hide? Chino Squirrel Seed Machine Gun. Attack the right. Vegeta used Destruction Beam to attack the left. Zhu Xiandao immediately blocked all the escape directions of our shark. Anyway, for Zhu Xiandao, this is not a formal competition. As long as he can win, Zhu Xiandao will not play any rules with the opponent. Then he saw Chino Squirrel, who instantly appeared on the head of the Pidgeot. He opened his mouth, and then a series of seeds instantly appeared like bullets, blocking the escape direction of the giant shark on the right. On the other side, the Pidgeot also opened its mouth, and then a ray of light was immediately prepared in its mouth. Once the giant shark made any movement, the damage in its mouth would be shot out. At this time, the man was even more gloomy, and he never expected that the other party would be so insidious and cunning. However, fortunately, this is the Seaman, and he is also preparing to let the giant shark dive into the water. But before he gave the order, he saw the giant dragon composed of waves and Chino Squirrel seeds directly hit the giant shark. Then the giant shark fainted on the sea. Damn it. The man's face became even gloomier. He lost an elf, so how could he not know that he was no match for the man in front of him? Run quickly. At this time, the man no longer paid attention to his unconscious elf. You still want to run? Ridiculous. Then Zhu Xiandao immediately ordered, and then the three elves immediately used skills one after another, covering the man who was about to escape, and the flying dragon. The overwhelming skills were like a net, blocking all the directions of the man's escape. Bang! Facing this unavoidable skill, the man was directly hit, and then a thick smoke appeared in the air. The moment the thick smoke just appeared, two figures quickly fell from the black smoke to the sea. Come over. Zhu Xiandao also immediately ordered his elves to get closer to the man, and this time he must not let him escape. At this time, Zhu Xiandao also saw that the previous flying dragon had already fainted, and the man began to slowly sink into the sea. Catch him up. Zhu Xiandao said to Milotic. Then the figure of Milotic suddenly flashed in the sea and turned into a ray of light. In just 2 seconds, it appeared on the sea level holding the man's clothes. Chapter 118. The person was lost. Then, with a swing, the man was thrown onto the flying dragon. I'll see where you run this time. Zhu Xiandao was even more satisfied, looking at the man who had closed his eyes and was motionless. Zhu Xiandao could see that the man had been seriously injured in the attack just now. Zhu Xiandao also checked a little and found that the man's breathing had become weaker and weaker, and even his heartbeat was constantly weakening. Zhu Xiandao didn't care about his life or death, and then he took off the package on his body and began to search up and down. Found it. Then Zhu Xiandao took out the feather of the mythical beast from the man's backpack and looked carefully. The other party was also very well protected. In the fierce battle just now, there was no damage at all. Feather of the mythical beast, the carrier can ignore it. All whirlpools and waves must be carried to sail normally on the sea, and the mythical beast Lugia can be summoned in special places. The system's appraisal also appeared in Zhu Xiandao's mind. Ding, congratulations on completing task 2. The reward is the elf illustration limit. Open it and you can draw 3 times. Task 3 is on. The system's prompt sounded again in Zhu Xiandao's mind. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was even more delighted. Doesn't this mean that he can now have countless elves and can easily summon an elf army? But then Zhu Xiandao was also confused. Why is there still task 3? Please go to Shianch Island within 3 days in Suzhou and destroy the experimental base hidden in Shianch Island to disrupt the enemy's plan. The map has been opened. After completing the task, you will be rewarded with a technology bracelet and 3 drawers. Listening to the system's prompts, Zhu Xiandao was even more breathless. Isn't it a bit too arrogant? The system actually asked him to go to someone else's base to cause trouble, and also to destroy the other party's plan. Although I don't know who the other party is, I don't need to think about it. I know that their base is definitely heavily guarded. Wouldn't it be suicide to go there alone? And even if I can find the other party's base, I may not be able to complete the task. After all, Zhu Xiandao doesn't know what the system means by destroying the enemy's plan. If Zhu Xiandao finds the other party's base, but still can't get in, wouldn't it be embarrassing? That means the other party is an organized gang. Zhu Xiandao frowned and thought, facing such an organized gang, and also owning a territory, it's just a foolish dream to want to attack by force. However, when Zhu Xiandao thought that he could be rewarded with a technological bracelet after completing this mission, he was very excited. Technological bracelets have not appeared in this world yet, which means that this is a prop that is beyond the times. High risk also means high return, which means that, as long as you can do it, then the reward you get will be amazing. Once you get the high-tech bracelet, Zhu Xiandao's combat effectiveness will be completely far away from the people of this era. Then Zhu Xiandao looked at the feather of the mythical beast in his hand again. Zhu Xiandao didn't know what to do with this feather. Could it be that he should give it to Zuhu? But Zhu Xiandao thought about it. After all, this is the feather of a mythical beast. If someone among those high-level people has the same idea as this group of people, if they get such a mythical beast, then the world will be destroyed. But if he embezzled the money and was found out, it was estimated that even the Zhu family would not be able to protect him in such a serious matter. Forget it, why bother so much? Anyway, no one has found out yet. Zhu Xiandao didn't care. At most, he could find an excuse to fool him when he was found out. As Zhu Xiandao continued to check, he found 6 more Pokeballs on his body. Zhu Xiandao collected all the other party's 6 Pokémons, then took the Pidgeot, took back all the Pokémons, and left on the Pidgeot. As for the man, he was slowly sinking to the bottom of the sea. In this vast ocean, even if someone could find this location, it would have been swallowed up by the Pokémons in the sea, and there would be no evidence left. After leaving, Zhu Xiandao also fell towards Xianming. But halfway through the flight, Zhu Xiandao thought about it and connected to Zuhu's communicator. Zuhu, have you finished your work? Zhu Xiandao asked. Fortunately, this side is over. We are cleaning up the battlefield. What about you? Have you found anyone? Zuhu said weakly. It was obvious that this battle was very tiring for him. I really can't find them. They ran too fast. I have been tracking them in the north as you said, but I haven't seen a single person in more than 20 minutes. Zhu Xiandao was even more open-eyed and lying. Really? In that case, come back first. Anyway, you have helped us a lot. Zuhu said helplessly. After all, because of Zhu Xiandao, they had already prepared in advance, but they didn't expect them to escape. In the final analysis, they were not well prepared. I'm rushing back, and will be there soon. Then Zhu Xiandao also ordered, and Pidgeot immediately went in the direction of Xianming Island. Of course, Zhu Xiandao was not in a hurry to rush back. After deliberately delaying for a while, Zhu Xiandao arrived at the moment when Xianming Island appeared an hour later. Zhu Xiandao also found that the battle had already ended, and police officers were searching everywhere. Thank you for this. At this time, Zuhu's voice came over. Nothing. If I was faster, they would not be able to escape. Zhu Xiandao said with a self-blaming face. This can't be blamed on you. After all, we were not well prepared. If we could have delayed him for a while, it would have been good. Zuhu also shook his head. After all, everyone was panicked at the moment of the sudden attack. If I'm not wrong, the other party would never have flown to the north all the time. It is estimated that they may have changed direction at some point. It is normal that you can't find it. Zuhu also said lightly. After all, even they would probably do the same. Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zuhu in surprise. He didn't expect that the other party could guess so accurately. By the way, there is one more thing. Now this tanker can no longer continue to sail. It can only stop here for inspection for the time being, so this trip is probably over. Chapter 119. Resurrection of Tyrannosaurus. That's fine. Anyway, I just came here to have some fun. What about the devil I knocked down before? Zhu Xiandao spoke again. As for the voyage, Zhu Xiandao didn't care. Anyway, Zhu Xiandao had gained a lot of benefits from this mission, and he had another important mission to do. He has been controlled. Then he said lightly, and then continued, you go back to the room to rest first, and then continue your journey. I have a lot of work to do, so I'll go first. After Zhu finished speaking, he turned and left Zhu Xiandao, and did not suggest leaving the dock. As for the other inspectors, although they saw Zhu Xiandao, they did not search. It should be that Zhu especially greeted him, and let Zhu Xiandao move freely. Zhu Xiandao also came to a hotel in the city. Zhu Xiandao planned to rest here for one night and officially go to Cheyenne Island to complete the mission tomorrow. The next day, after Zhu Xiandao had a simple breakfast, he did not go to the rooftop to release the Pidgeot, and then set off to the destination. After flying for a day, Zhu Xiandao arrived at an island. At this time, Zhu Xiandao took out a lighter and made a fire. After making some simple dinner, Zhu Xiandao also observed the surrounding environment. After flying for a day, according to the signs on the map, he is now on a small island called Flame Island. The Pidgeot next to him was snoring. After all, flying for a day, the physical consumption of Pidgeot was also very large. Zhu Xiandao was also bored, and suddenly remembered his resurrection machine. Finally, Zhu Xiandao followed the instructions, and came to an open ground. Then the metal ball in Zhu Xiandao's hand suddenly began to deform. Not long after, a pile of densely packed parts began to assemble. Not long after, a strange machine appeared in front of Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao also immediately took out the food he had obtained, put the studio in it, and then immediately started the machine. I will be able to get a new partner soon. I don't know if the system can restore the dragon strength 100%. Zhu Xiandao's eyes were also excited. As the machine ran faster and faster, Zhu Xiandao became more and more excited. The system product is indeed a fine product. Not long after, a white light appeared in the machine, and the white light became more and more vigorous. When the white light disappeared, a figure like an evil dragon suddenly appeared in the machine. Tyrannosaurus has a talent level of 5. Level 5. Seeing the prompt of the system, Zhu Xiandao was even more ecstatic. He did not expect that he could not only be resurrected, but also saw the talent level. Zhu Xiandao was even more excited. This is a talent level of 5, one step away from reaching the level of a divine beast. You should know that there are very few elves of this level, even in the whole world. At this time, Tyrannosaurus was also petite, just like a newborn. At this time, it slowly opened its eyes, and looked at everything around it in confusion. Welcome to this world, my Tyrannosaurus. Following Zhu Xiandao's voice, Tyrannosaurus looked at Zhu Xiandao in confusion with a hint of vigilance and fear in his eyes. For a moment, Zhu Xiandao did not care. In the end, he put his hand on Tyrannosaurus and turned on his mind reading. After a brief communication, Tyrannosaurus was also comforted by Zhu Xiandao. Then Zhu Xiandao began to explain this world to Explosion Beast bit by bit, and the relationship between the two people also rose rapidly. So from now on, we are partners, and I'm your spirit. Tyrannosaurus looked at Zhu Xiandao in confusion. After all, he had just come to this world, and knew nothing about it. But if he could get a partner, he would be much more relaxed, and for some reason, it seemed that Zhu Xiandao had a special charm that always attracted him. Yes, we are partners. From today on, we are close partners, we are good friends, and we will spend a happy life. Zhu Xiandao also said with a smile. Hearing Zhu Xiandao's words, Tyrannosaurus was also full of joy. Then he threw himself directly into Zhu Xiandao's arms, and kept rubbing against him in Zhu Xiandao's arms. It turned out that this face was embarrassed. After all, although Tyrannosaurus looked petite when he was just born, it was at least 60 kilograms. The squirrel next to him was helpless, watching the scene in front of him. It was obvious that another newbie was tricked into Zhu Xiandao's hands. Then Zhu Xiandao also took out a Pokémon sword and flashed the Pokémon. A flash of white light flashed past Tyrannosaurus and disappeared instantly. The Pokémon shook in Zhu Xiandao's hand for a few seconds before stopping. Zhu Xiandao was even more ecstatic. Successful capture. Get a luxury ball. The system's prompt sounded again. Then Zhu Xiandao also checked Tyrannosaurus' skills. Then the male protagonist was even more surprised. Impact Bite, Crush, Dragon Claw, Dragon Tail Swing, Rock Polishing. And there are several advanced skills among them. Zhu Xiandao was even more shocked. What's going on with the system? Why does he have advanced skills just after he was born? Zhu Xiandao said puzzledly. You know, even if Tyrannosaurus was just born, it was just a few simple small skills. Zhu Xiandao could accept it. After all, Zhu Xiandao can not only activate skills through the system, but also purchase them. But Tyrannosaurus was just born and carried powerful skills. It can be said that even in the later stages, they are all god skills. Because after resurrection, although Tyrannosaurus is now in a state of being just born, the skills that he mastered in his life have been integrated into his bones, which can be said to be instinctive skills. Hearing the explanation of the system, Zhu Xiandao was even more happy. Come out, Tyrannosaurus. As Zhu Xiandao waved his hand, a white light flashed in the Pokeball, and Tyrannosaurus appeared in front of Zhu Xiandao again. How is it? Are you used to life in there? Zhu Xiandao squatted down and asked. It's okay. The place inside is quite large, but it's a bit empty. Tyrannosaurus nodded. Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly, and then took out some energy cubes. Try these foods first to see if they suit your appetite. Tyrannosaurus took out the energy cubes after taking a look at them, and finally opened his mouth wide and swallowed them. Zhu Xiandao looked at the way Tyrannosaurus swallowed, and his face was speechless. This eating appearance was too ugly, it was simply swallowing the whole thing. Chapter 120 Infiltrating the Base. After a simple meal, Zhu Xiandao took out the skill machine he had before, and then taught Tyrannosaurus to learn some common skills. After doing all this, Zhu Xiandao opened his simple tent and slowly closed his eyes. When Zhu Xiandao woke up again, he had a simple breakfast with the elves. The Pidgeot, which had consumed too much energy yesterday, was fully recovered at this time. Finally, Zhu Xiandao summoned all the elves and introduced them to his new partner. Then everyone immediately became familiar with each other, and Zhu Xiandao was also relieved. According to this situation, he would have an extremely powerful team. After the elves got familiar with each other for a while, Zhu Xiandao once again took the Pidgeot and set off. On the second night, Zhu Xiandao also came to the vicinity of the Sky Snake Island, and it was here that Zhu Xiandao also fed the Pidgeot, which was easily consumed, some drugs to replenish physical strength. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also came to a dense forest and looked at the Sky Snake Island not far away. Zhu Xiandao did not approach directly. After all, there was the enemy's base there. He did not need to instruct the enemy in detail. They would definitely guard against it, and there might be hidden injuries. Zhu Xiandao decided to be cautious. According to the system's prompt, the enemy's base was in a mountain on the Sky Snake Island. Although he knew where he could go, it was a difficult problem to sneak in. After all, if the enemy completely controlled the Sky Snake Island, he would have a hard time even getting close. And when Zhu Xiandao was thinking about how to sneak into the base of the Sky Snake Island, he suddenly saw a crack suddenly appear in a rock in the mountain. It was like a door that slowly opened to both sides, revealing the environment inside. Seeing this, Zhu Xiandao was even more shocked. He did not expect to find the entrance to the base so easily. Then a small boat slowly appeared from inside, without even turning on the lights, and slowly disappeared into the sea in the night. After the boat just left, it must have slowly closed again. If Zhu Xiandao had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not even be able to see that there was a secret door here. I didn't expect the other party to be so cautious. After seeing the other party's arrangement, Zhu Xiandao was more certain that it would not be an easy task to get close. You know, there are countless small islands around the Sky Snake Island. It is really difficult to attract people's attention if they hide in them like this. In addition, at night, Zhu Xiandao was observing the movements of the entire base while thinking about how to get close. In the morning, the men found that the ship that left last night appeared again. Seeing this, Zhu Xiandao felt that this was an opportunity. He could sneak into the ship and follow them in. Then Zhu Xiandao immediately took out the respirator that had been prepared long ago. Zhu Xiandao slowly touched the seashore. Of course, Zhu Xiandao had no choice but to send the squirrel back to the Pokeball. Although the squirrel was not happy at all, it was after Zhu Xiandao agreed to make 5 special cookies for free, and the squirrel obediently returned to the Pokeball. After doing all this, Zhu Xiandao also summoned Milotic. After all, it was a foolish dream to catch up with the ship at his own speed. After summoning Milotic, Zhu Xiandao also held Milotic and quickly approached the ship. As the distance got closer, he discovered that the ship was just a transport ship, and the driver was at the bow. It can be said that the number of people on the entire ship was very small. This gave Zhu Xiandao more opportunities. After getting closer, Zhu Xiandao climbed onto the ship carefully, and then the male protagonist looked around. As soon as he climbed onto the deck, Zhu Xiandao found that there were countless boxes covered with black cloth on the deck, and there was no one guarding around. Zhu Xiandao checked again, and after making sure that there was no one, he secretly came under a black cloth and sneaked in. After Zhu Xiandao just went in, with the faint light, Zhu Xiandao instantly saw the situation inside the black cloth. It turned out that there was a large iron cage covered under the black cloth, and there were several elves in the cage. And every elf is a flying dragon. Zhu Xiandao was even more shocked when he thought of the several pieces of black cloth on the deck. Could it be that all the dragons were imprisoned there? You know, with so many of them, could it be that they had captured a group of dragons? Woo woo. The moment Zhu Xiandao approached, the dragons in the cage also showed a look of fear. I'm not a bad person. I will never hurt you. Zhu Xiandao also turned on the mind reading and began to comfort them. You know, if I was exposed because of the sound they made, it would be too miserable. After seeing their emotions begin to stabilize, Zhu Xiandao also found that, although the cage was very large and the dragons could not get out, Zhu Xiandao could easily get in. Although Zhu Xiandao had comforted them before, the faces of the dragons were still filled with fear. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also briefly understood the situation with them, and found that his guess was right. The other few we imprisoned here were also dragons. It can be said that the entire tribe was wiped out in one go. When someone was caught, Zhu Xiandao was beside them, comforting them and saying that he was here to save them. Then Zhu Xiandao asked them to wait and cover themselves, and never let them find out. He would definitely let them all out when he found a chance. Then the boat slowly sailed into the mountain wall, and the male Zhu Xiandao successfully slipped into the base. After entering the base, Zhu Xiandao immediately found that there was light shining through the black cloth. Finally, Zhu Xiandao had a simple communication with the non-us around him, and then he would rely on them for help. Not long after, the boat slowly stopped, and then the voices of several people appeared on the plywood. Zhu Xiandao also wore the translator on his ears, and Zhu Xiandao didn't know who the other party was, but it was certain that it was probably the devil again. Because of its huge size, the flying dragon in the cage quickly surrounded Zhu Xiandao in the center, and some even had their own wings to cover Zhu Xiandao. It can be said that Zhu Xiandao has been completely hidden by them. Chapter 121 Action begins. The number is correct, all here. At this time, a man also picked up the walkie-talkie and said, then walk to the next iron cage. Hearing the footsteps getting farther and farther away, Zhu Xiandao was relieved. You know, Zhu Xiandao's life is now in the hands of these elves. If these elves don't cooperate with him, the consequences will be serious. Zhu Xiandao doesn't think he has the ability to challenge the entire base alone. After a few minutes, Zhu Xiandao heard the roar of the machine. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao felt a tremor in the iron cage he was in. Then, several iron cages originally on the ship were transported by a transport vehicle to the deeper part of the base. With the movement of the vehicle, Zhu Xiandao didn't know how long it had been, and then Zhu Xiandao felt that he had come to another place. Fireworks march came for about a few minutes, and people could feel that the light around them was dimming again. However, Zhu Xiandao didn't know what was going on outside. He waited for half an hour to make sure that there was no one around before slowly showing his head. "What is this place? It looks a bit like a warehouse." Zhu Xiandao looked at the empty space around him and said in confusion. There were countless cages here. Obviously, the flying dragons on the ship were all imprisoned in a huge warehouse. Zhu Xiandao, who came to test, opened the system again. Zhu Xiandao suddenly found that the map in the system changed again. The structure of the rope base appeared completely in Zhu Xiandao's mind. Even Zhu Xiandao could easily check where there were surveillance cameras. With the map of this base, it will be much simpler. Zhu Xiandao was also happy. He originally thought that he needed someone to find out the situation of this base, but now Zhu Xiandao can save a lot of time. Finally, Zhu Xiandao could also study carefully. Zhu Xiandao also found that his current location was on the map. It was deep underground. The most important thing was that there was not even a surveillance camera inside the warehouse. Although there was no surveillance camera inside the warehouse, there was a surveillance camera outside the warehouse, which illuminated the entire corridor. It can be said that the candidates entering and leaving the warehouse were seen clearly. "Let me see if there is any way to escape," Zhu Xiandao said while studying the map of the entire base. Fortunately, the map provided by the system is also very detailed. It not only has large and small rooms, but also the location of surveillance cameras, and even some ventilation pipes are clearly marked. Zhu Xiandao also took out a flashlight from his backpack. Since there is no one guarding this warehouse, and no surveillance cameras, it is much more convenient for him. Zhu Xiandao took out a flashlight and began to look around the surrounding environment. Then he found that there were at least dozens of iron cages in this huge warehouse. There were countless elves inside. Looking at such a large group of elves, Zhu Xiandao was even more surprised. Seeing Zhu Xiandao's arrival, all the elves turned a blind eye, as if they didn't see it, with numb faces. Obviously, these elves didn't know how long they had been locked up here, and had completely lost the desire to escape. "Don't worry, I will definitely save you," Zhu Xiandao said with gritted teeth. It is obvious that these elves must have suffered a lot of torture staying here. After hearing Zhu Xiandao's words, many elves also raised their heads, looked at Zhu Xiandao, and then there was a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Of course, most of the other people's faces were still full of numbness. On the other side, Zhu Xiandao searched, and finally found the vent, and finally climbed up easily. There was also Zhu Xiandao, but he was very careful and guessed that the vent was blocked and he couldn't get in, and then he restored the grid to its original position. In the following time, Zhu Xiandao also began to crawl forward according to the system map. Zhu Xiandao was even more cautious, so that he didn't make any noise. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also confirmed one room after another, and then he also found the cafeteria, training room, lounge, and even the bedroom where the members stayed in the entire base. What Zhu Xiandao is looking for now is a room that is crucial to the entire base, such as being able to control the electricity of the entire base, or whether there is any room with a mechanism to destroy the entire base. Zhu Xiandao searched one room after another, and not long after, Zhu Xiandao came to another room through the vent, and looked down from above, and suddenly he could directly see dozens of large screens in the room. "This should be the monitoring room," Zhu Xiandao said excitedly. After all, being able to find the monitoring room means that he can thoroughly understand the structure of the entire base. Finally, he observed the room again, and confirmed that there were only 4 people in the room. There were 4 people again, and only one person was staring at the monitoring screen, while the other 3 were chatting boredly. Then Zhu Xiandao waved his hand to summon the squirrel. The moment the squirrel just appeared, Zhu Xiandao immediately covered the squirrel's mouth, and signaled him to be quiet. Then Zhu Xiandao pointed to another part of the vent. "Wait a minute, you and I will sneak in quietly, and reach the people inside as quickly as possible, and try not to make too much noise." After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the squirrel looked at the people in the room, and then nodded quickly. Then Zhu Xiandao took the squirrel, and sneaked over again. Arriving at the iron railings of the vent, Zhu Xiandao opened the iron railings very lightly. The people in the room had already gotten used to the life in the base, and obviously did not expect that someone would invade their base and find their way here. Everyone was chatting without any defense and knew nothing about the situation on Zhu Xiandao's side. Seeing that he succeeded so easily, Zhu Xiandao was also very excited and then stretched out his hand and waved at the squirrel. The next moment, the squirrel turned into a residual smoke and jumped out of the vent in an instant. Bang, 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 bang. Then a small figure flashed in the room. Then several people fell to the ground unconscious in an instant, and they didn't even see clearly who attacked them. Seeing that the squirrel succeeded so easily, Zhu Xiandao was relieved. Then he slowly crawled out of the vent. Chapter 120 to Crawl Experiment. Well done. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, he gave the squirrel a thumbs up. Finally, Zhu Xiandao took out a dagger from his space backpack and gently scratched the necks of the 4 unconscious people who fell to the ground. Although they were already unconscious, in order to ensure his own safety, Zhu Xiandao decided to kill them directly. He could still kill them directly. After the 4 people, his heart was extremely calm, and there was not even a trace of ripples. After all, this was not the first time Zhu Xiandao had killed someone, and Zhu Xiandao was already familiar with this kind of thing. Here you can see the environment of the entire base. Now let me see if there are any important clues. Then Zhu Xiandao also looked at the situation on the screen carefully. Finally, Zhu Xiandao found that, because it was just dawn, many people were still sleeping in the room at this time, and there were 2 people patrolling in each corridor. Zhu Xiandao also looked at the monitor in front of him, and the map given by the system in his mind, and began to compare them one by one to determine the function of that room. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao's eyes lit up, because Zhu Xiandao saw an important room, the power distribution room. As long as you can enter the power distribution room, the entire power plant will be destroyed, and then the base will be paralyzed by at least 80%. Then Zhu Xiandao quickly looked through it again, first to see if there are other important rooms. But the advanced Zhu Xiandao saw a strange room, which was dim. Zhu Xiandao enlarged the picture and then saw rows of cylindrical machines placed in the dim room. What is this? Zhu Xiandao looked puzzled. It is impossible to just think about remembering this room first. The most important thing now is to leave here quickly. After all, Zhu Xiandao didn't know when someone would come to the room to change shifts. Zhu Xiandao wanted to complete his mission before being noticed by everyone and destroy the power distribution room of the entire base. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao came to a vent again. Below the vent was Zhu Xiandao. The strange room he saw before was even darker. Do you want to go down and take a look? Zhu Xiandao began to hesitate. After all, Zhu Xiandao didn't know what was in this room. If he wasted time in this room and caused the people in the monitoring room to be discovered, it would be difficult for him. Forget it. Since I'm here, I'll go down and take a look. It won't waste a few minutes anyway. Thinking of this, he once again skillfully removed the iron railings of the vent and jumped down. Just after entering the room, Zhu Xiandao also noticed that the room was extremely dark, and finally Zhu Xiandao took out a flashlight. Then the situation inside the cylindrical machine was presented in front of Zhu Xiandao. What is this? There seems to be something in this liquid. Zhu Xiandao looked at the cylindrical machine in front of him, which was full of green liquid, and there were obviously some creatures in the liquid that were constantly bubbling. Near death. Near death. Seeing the system prompt, Zhu Xiandao looked at the various strange elves in front of him in shock. The various elves in front of him were all Zhu Xiandao, who had never seen them before, and even the system could not distinguish them. But Zhu Xiandao could see that these elves were full of strange things. Zhu Xiandao could even see the tentacles of a lightning elf on the head of a fire elf. Damn it, they are using elves for experiments. They are going to create a combined elf. Zhu Xiandao clenched his fists tightly, never expecting them to do such a cruel experiment. You know, in an experiment like this, the elves will fail countless times, and it is unknown how many elves will be lost. The most important thing is that these elves are still suffering from great pain at this moment, and even the expressions on their faces are distorted. Zhu Xiandao took a deep breath, and the male protagonist knew that now was not the time to vent his emotions. The most important thing now is to quickly destroy the entire base, and not let this cruel experiment continue. Although Zhu Xiandao's face was extremely calm, the anger in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. Now Zhu Xiandao felt that everyone in this base deserved to die. At the beginning, Zhu Xiandao also thought that this was a task of the system, and he wanted to destroy the base in order to get a reward. But at that time, Zhu Xiandao did not want to kill all the people in the base. But after seeing this scene, Zhu Xiandao decided to let them experience this feeling of living a life worse than death. The male protagonist climbed up the vent again, and then headed towards the destination. Just as Zhu Xiandao was heading towards the power distribution room, he suddenly stopped again, and looked at the room below with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This is actually the equipment room. Zhu Xiandao didn't think about it, and jumped into the room again, and then looked at the countless equipment in front of him. Night vision goggles, flash guns, submachine guns, special armor, all kinds of equipment were placed in front of Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao also kept searching, and put all the useful equipment into the space backpack. Is this a bomb? Not long after, Zhu Xiandao came to a row of shelves again. Zhu Xiandao was surprised, and then checked again, and found that the bomb in front of him was just an underwater bomb. It can be said that these underwater bombs are specially used to deal with elves in the water. It goes without saying that they have captured countless water elves in this way. This is a good thing. It will be useful when the time comes. Zhu Xiandao's face was full of excitement, but looking at the dense underwater bombs in front of him, Zhu Xiandao was a little speechless. After all, although he had a space backpack, he really couldn't fit so many underwater bombs. Then Zhu Xiandao also took a few equipment he needed. Why not leave equipment for the enemy? Zhu Xiandao destroyed all the equipment he didn't need. After all, if Zhu Xiandao was discovered, it would not be a good thing for him if they use the equipment. After installing the equipment, Zhu Xiandao climbed into the ventilation duct again. A few minutes later, Zhu Xiandao once again came to the top of the distribution room. Finally here, the plan can finally officially begin. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123. Damn Scientist. Black and White. Destroy all the machines here. Zhu Xiandao gave the order immediately after summoning Black and White. A flash of lightning flashed across Black and White's body, and then all the machines and equipment in the room were destroyed. As Black and White moved, the lights in the entire base went dark one after another. What's going on? Why is there a power outage? Go to the power distribution room and check immediately. Monitoring room. Monitor room. Is there any accident in the power distribution room? At the moment when the power outage just happened, many people immediately became panicked, and everyone was facing a great enemy. After all, the power distribution room is inspected by professional personnel every day, and the power distribution room also has monitoring. After all, the daily power consumption of the base is extremely huge, and it is absolutely not allowed to be destroyed. Although they also have backup power, the backup power can only maintain those core equipment, and the backup power can't last for long. What on earth happened in the damn monitoring room? There was no response. Everyone searched the base immediately. At this time, the base was filled with emergency alarms, and even the soldiers who were sleeping soundly stood up urgently. They began to inspect the entire base. On the other side, after destroying all the power distribution equipment, Zhu Xiandao immediately took Hei Bei away. Damn, it looks like we have to fight. Zhu Xiandao also knew that, after destroying the power distribution room again, he would definitely encounter the enemy. After doing all this, Zhu Xiandao immediately took out the flashbang that he had prepared long ago, and threw it directly at the oncoming enemy. Bang! The soldiers who were rushing over felt a flash of white light in front of their eyes, and then everyone went into a state of unconsciousness. Hei Bei, get rid of them. As Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, lightning flashed on Hei Bei's body one after another. There was a flash of lightning in the air, and then a team coming towards them instantly fell to the ground and fell unconscious. Zhu Xiandao walked forward without hesitation, and killed all 6 members of the team with one knife. Have you investigated it clearly? A middle-aged man in a command room asked angrily. Report to the base commander. Our power distribution room was destroyed by someone unknown, and all the guards in the monitoring room were killed. There should be intruders in our base. One of the men in uniform quickly reported the information they had obtained. How is this possible? Our base is so hidden, and there are countless people both outside and inside the base. Who can break into our base quietly? The base commander's face was full of anger and shock. The middle-aged man also lowered his head and remained silent. How many intruders are there? The base commander asked quickly. It was completely useless to say these things now. The most important thing is to find all the intruders and get rid of them. No intruders have been found yet. The man in uniform responded again. They are all useless. The people in the monitoring room were killed and the TV was destroyed, but they didn't notice anything. They didn't even see a ghost. The base commander's face was full of anger. Facing the base commander's anger, the man in uniform also listened quietly, not daring to refute anything. On the other side, Zhu Xiandao was also hiding in a dark corner watching one team after another. Zhu Xiandao used the usual method, throwing a flash dart over and then killing them all with a knife. Please let me go. My daughter is waiting for me to go back home. Just when Zhu Xiandao was about to kill the last person in this team, he suddenly heard the other party begging for mercy. Huh? Are you an experimenter here? Looking at the white coat on the other person, Zhu Xiandao's eyes became even colder. Yes, I'm a scientist here. I just do some research. I didn't do anything bad. The man in the white coat said with fear. Hearing the words of the white coat, Zhu Xiandao's eyes became even colder. It is because of the existence of these scientists that the elves have suffered so much, and he has no remorse at all. Answer me whatever I ask you. The male protagonist said even more coldly. No problem, as long as I know. Just ask and I will tell you everything. Tell me where the keys to the cages in the warehouse are? You mean the key cards for the elves in the warehouse? The man in the white coat also looked at Zhu Xiandao with a puzzled look. Seeing the man's confusion, Zhu Xiandao put the dagger in his hand on the man's neck. I know. The key card is in my pocket. After seeing Zhu Xiandao's actions, the doctor in the white coat was full of fear on his face. And Zhu Xiandao also held a dagger on the man's neck with one hand, and the other hand was in his pocket, and then he took out a black magnetic card. Can I let it go now? Puff. The man hadn't finished speaking, and then Zhu Xiandao waved his hand and the dagger instantly drew a line between the man's neck. Blood gushed out along the thread. The man in the white coat also covered his neck, widened his eyes, and looked at Zhu Xiandao with resentment. How naive. Zhu Xiandao shook his head. Zhu Xiandao did not intend to let anyone in this base go, especially these cruel and inhumane scientists. It was because of them that countless elves were tortured. Then Zhu Xiandao started again according to the previous plan, solving the problem one team at a time. Zhu Xiandao also knew that he had to move to another place after each shot. If he stayed in one place, he would definitely be besieged. Fortunately, Zhu Xiandao had already fully understood the structure of the base, and Zhu Xiandao was very familiar with the base. Report. Another team has lost contact. The uniformed man in the command room also reported loudly. Damn, which team is this? What are you doing? Have you investigated how many invaders there are? The base commander was even more angry. Report to the base commander. We haven't got any clues about the enemy yet. The uniformed young man said helplessly. Chapter 124. Here comes the expert. From now on, each team must report the situation every minute. The base commander spoke again. Then the commander's order was once again conveyed to every team in the base. From beginning to end, they didn't even know how many enemies were hiding in the base. They only knew that a team had just disappeared. As a result, another team disappeared on the other side. The other side was like a ghost. Report to the base commander. Another team has lost contact. The uniformed man spoke again. Damn, have you found his location? The team just now was last seen in the third area. Now let all teams gather and go to the third area immediately. Following the words of the base commander, all the teams in the entire base began to surround the third area. Zhu Xiandao was also waiting quietly. Zhu Xiandao naturally knew that his actions for so long were probably also noticed by the other party. Then Zhu Xiandao began to prepare again. At the beginning, Zhu Xiandao also summoned his elves and hid them in several other dark corners. Skirrel, you and I will throw the flashton together. As for Black and White, Nidoking, and Milotic, you two should cooperate. After a wave of surf, Black and White will immediately use 100,000 volts. As for the disaster spirit in Skirrel, you will be responsible for finishing off the team. If there are still people alive, you should finish them off immediately. You must not give them a chance to breathe. You must kill them all in the shortest possible time. Zhu Xiandao also started to plan immediately. Male Zhu Xiandao naturally only summoned 5 spirits. As for the other 2, compared with the Eagle Bird and Tyrannosaurus, the place here is too small, and their combat power cannot be exerted at all. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao's enhanced body also heard the dense footsteps coming from afar. Everyone, get ready immediately. Then Zhu Xiandao immediately put on the sunglasses he had prepared long ago, and at this time, the flashdan was also in his hand. Fortunately, there was only a corridor here, with only 2 directions, front and back. Zhu Xiandao and Skirrel each looked in one direction, ready to throw the flashdan in their hands at any time. Let's do it now. Zhu Xiandao had just finished speaking when he threw his flashdan forward. Songshu also threw the flashdan in his hand toward the direction behind Zhu Xiandao. Just as the 2 of them threw the flashdan, 2 teams immediately ran around the corner. Oh no, there's a bomb. Bang. Before they could react, the flashdan exploded in front of them. Now we need to use surf. Zhu Xiandao had just finished speaking when he saw Milotic flick its tail, and then a wave instantly appeared in the base, and the wave instantly covered both sides of the corridor. Black and White, get ready. Then, several people from one of the teams, although hit by the flashdan, flicked the Pokeballs in their hands. Then, 2 Pokémon instantly appeared in the corridor. Rock Monster, attack now. But just as the man finished speaking, he was knocked to the ground by a huge wave. 100,000 volts. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was staying next to Min Xiao. Although the ocean waves completely submerged the surroundings, Min Xiao had the ability to control water, so Zhu Xiandao and several elves were not wet. Zzzz. As Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, 100,000 volts of electricity instantly hit the water surface. Today, the electricity in the 100,000 volts instantly illuminated the entire space around. Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly. After the waves just washed over, it can be said that anyone in the corridor will be attacked. Ah. Then the screams rang out in the corridor. Many people were electrocuted unconscious under this terrifying 100,000 volts. Even the elves who had just been summoned fell to the ground unconscious. Damn it. Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised that there were people who could still stand after enduring the combination of the silver sea waves and the 100,000 volts. Then Zhu Xiandao took a look and found that the other party was also wearing special equipment. Is it the equipment that helps him offset some of his attack power? I'll leave the disaster elf Skirrel to you and get rid of all the rest. As Zhu Xiandao spoke, the 2 elves beside Zhu Xiandao flashed. 2 of the people wearing special equipment also reacted and immediately took out another elf ball. Raging Dragon, talent level 5, level 56. Dark Snake, talent level 3, level 47. Rock Turtle, talent level 5, level 54. Thunder Beast, talent level 3, level 46. In just a blink of an eye, the 2 people summoned 4 elves to stand in front of them. After seeing this, Zhu Xiandao's eyes became extremely solemn. No wonder these 2 people were able to wear special equipment. It seems that they should be the elite among the elites in this base. However, when Zhu Xiandao saw the 2 elves with talent level 5, his eyes lit up. You have to know that you can use elves without restrictions now. Facing this kind of elf with talent level 5, Zhu Xiandao wanted to snatch it directly. Building an army composed entirely of level 5 talents, and then just thinking about it, you can summon tens of thousands of level 5 elves with talent. What a terrifying existence that is. Nidoking Minas, the Dark Serpent and the Lightning Shot will be left to you to deal with. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, Nidoking and Minas were also on alert. Then Zhu Xiandao walked to Hebei and took out the necklace. Are you ready? Hebei glanced at Zhu Xiandao, and then the expression on his face became extremely solemn. Hibei had already known what Zhu Xiandao wanted to do, but he didn't expect it to be at this time. Hibei nodded, and his eyes became extremely serious. In the next moment, a colorful light suddenly appeared on the two of them, in which Zhu Xiandao even felt that he and Hibei had become more in tune with each other in the colorful light, as if his soul and Hibei had completely merged together. Even Zhu Xiandao could feel himself, and even as long as he had a thought, it could be easily transmitted to Hibei's mind. As for Zhu Xiandao's thoughts and ideas, Hibei had no resistance at all. Chapter 125 Super Evolution. It's actually super evolution. The two middle-aged men trembled after seeing this. At this time, a faint aura emanated from the super electric dragon, and even the two men felt a palpitation. It's okay. Although it's super evolution, he is only one person, and we have more elves than them. The other man was also cheering at this time. After all, whether it was the number of elves or the level, they still had the advantage. Attack immediately. With the fate of the two people, the full-embed elves immediately besieged Zhu Xiandao. On the other side, Zhu Xiandao also had no Jinyan under his command, and he also went out instantly, and then various skills instantly gushed out in the corridor. As the battle passed, the two also felt that something was wrong, because their business level was obviously higher, but they didn't know why their elves were indeed suppressed. Then the two waved their hands again, and then summoned 2 more elves, and then 8 elves instantly appeared in the corridor. You want to compete with me in the number of elves? Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly, his eyes were full of disdain. Finally, Zhu Xiandao waved his hand, and then 4 more elves appeared beside him. It's impossible. He has already summoned 5 elves, how can he summon 4 more? After seeing Zhu Xiandao's actions, the two were even more shocked, their eyes full of fear. That is to say, the male host has summoned 9 elves by himself now. You know, no one in the world can summon more than 6 elves. No, it must not be his own. Maybe he has companions. There are definitely more than one person who sneaked into the base. The other person also said quickly. It is impossible for one person to summon 9 elves. That means there must be other accomplices hiding around. But once this idea came into being, the two people were really filled with fear. Doesn't this mean that his teammates have 3 more elves in their hands? Maybe Zhu Xiandao's companions are hiding somewhere at this time, ready to attack them at any time. When they thought of this, the two people suddenly became extremely cautious, and even the previous offensive was instantly weakened. After hearing this, Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly, and did not explain. Anyway, Zhu Xiandao felt that there was no harm in their misunderstanding. You have to know that Zhu Xiandao can only subdue these 9 elves. Of course, Zhu Xiandao has no companions at all, but Zhu Xiandao also knows that in this case, there is no other explanation, except that there are hidden companions. No way, I can only use the last trick. One of the men gritted his teeth. You have to know that they were already very tired in the battle just now. If Zhu Xiandao really had a companion next to him, it is obvious that they would not have the possibility of escaping. Come out, bomber. Terror explosion. The man gave the order immediately, after throwing a Pokeball. Guard. Zhu Xiandao was even more shocked when he saw this. You have to know that in this small place, once the bomber explodes, the consequences will definitely be devastating. Boom. Just as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, a roar sounded instantly, and even the people in the entire base could feel the ground shaking like an earthquake. Damn, this is hurting the enemy and hurting myself. Under the protection of the surrounding elves, although Zhu Xiandao was not injured, the thick smoke from the explosion still made it difficult for Zhu Xiandao to breathe. Fortunately, you are here. Zhu Xiandao took a look at the elves surrounding him, and breathed a sigh of relief. If it weren't for these elf bodhisattvas, he would have died without a doubt, based on the explosion just now. However, the violent sound still made Zhu Xiandao feel a little dizzy, and the deafening explosion was right in front of him. The terrifying sound even made Zhu Xiandao's ears fail for a short time. Then, when he saw the thick smoke slowly dissipating, Zhu Xiandao felt even more pain in his heart. How are you? At this time, only the Skirl, the disaster elf, and Nidoking were seen lying on the ground unconscious. Even the other elves, although they did not fall, were also there gasping for breath with a hint of weakness on their faces. Zhu Xiandao checked the alliance and then breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was just that the energy was completely consumed, and it fell into a coma. The elves themselves were not seriously injured, and could be fully recovered in the elf center. Black and White, use the healing bell. Zhu Xiandao also immediately ordered Black and White next to him. In any case, the elites present were more or less injured. Under the treatment of Black and White, a ray of light instantly appeared and enveloped all the elves. For a while, the business that was originally only slightly injured, the wounds were slowly healing. Even some seriously injured were now completely recovered on the surface, and there was no trace of damage. You can stop. Seeing that the elves around him had almost recovered, Zhu Xiandao also breathed a sigh of relief. Although it takes a lot of time to make up for the physical consumption, as long as the elves themselves are not seriously injured and will not leave sequelae, it will be fine. Finally, Zhu Xiandao also took out various potions to replenish physical strength and began to distribute them to the elves. After all, he is now in the enemy's lair. Now, being able to restore a little more mental strength will be more secure for himself. After a short busy time, Zhu Xiandao completely relaxed. No matter what, at least his elves were still able to move. I didn't expect them to use such a suicidal move without saying a word. Zhu Xiandao was also a little scared. After all, he had only commanded on the competition stage before. He had never encountered such a terrifying enemy before, and Zhu Xiandao now knew that in a real battle, it would be countless times more dangerous than on the competition field. At this time, Zhu Xiandao also felt extremely sore all over. Although the explosion just now did not cause serious harm to him, he still suffered some concussions from the terrifying explosion. If it weren't for his body, which was much stronger than ordinary people after the system's strengthening, he would not be able to hold on with the terrifying shock just now. Zhu Xiandao also took out some simple medicines and then began to treat himself. After a short treatment, Zhu Xiandao immediately felt that his body had recovered a lot. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.